yesterday, even though I've got another one in my beard. So this is day 19 of Kabbalistic Crash Course, Pimp Kabbalah Boot Camp, whatever you want to consider it. And before we start, just tell a quick story. I was at lunch with my mom and her very close friend, and this was about 30 years ago. And my mom and her friend were just talking. Oh, and it was my mom's 40th birthday. And I remember I was just at the age where kids kind of get to be a little bratty. And I still remember my mom's friend paid, which, so shout out when you pay for people, it makes an impact. And she didn't have to do it. She paid for my mom for her lunch, and my mom would pay for her friend with their lunch. But I always said that my mom's friend looked like Joan Collins, but not, not really. Sort of, but not really. Anyway, we were at lunch, and they were at a place where uh, they were just talking, and it was my mom's 40th birthday, and that's not a generally a happy day in the life of some women or people. And my mom was there, and she said, "Well, at least I don't have any white hairs like my grandma at this point," because grandmother's my mom's grandmother had like brilliant white hair, and when she got older, apparently something like that. And I just blindly took my hand in my mom's hair and just pulled a hair out, which I normally wouldn't do, but it was just like I was inclined to do this. And I pulled out just one single white hair. My mom had no white hair. You couldn't tell any. But I just randomly pulled this one random white hair. And I was like, this is a white hair. And my mom's like, keep your hands to yourself. What are you talking about? And it was a white hair. And my mom and her friend, their jaws were on the table. And it was like, oh, you have a white hair. And so here I am, at about the same age, and I found my first white hair. So if you're in our bloodline, you can perhaps almost guarantee about age 40 you're going to get white hairs. I didn't have gray hair, it was white, which is interesting. So with that being said, we will get to our discussion for today. So what are we going to learn today, Rabbi? That's the beautiful thing about this class is we can learn anything you want. So what do we want to learn? Let's do the tree of life, because that's a thing. When people think Kabbalah, they think of the tree of life. And we'll become experts in it, God willing.
This version introduced several innovations that would reappear in later versions.
Oops. Here we go.
The Tree of Life, Hebrew, Romanized, Ayin or no, Romanized, Ayin, lit, tree, is a diagram used in rabbinical Judaism and Kabbalah and other mystical traditions derived from it. It is usually referred to as the Kabbalistic Tree of Life to distinguish.
Oh, let me just say, that was the last time I went to dinner, or went to lunch with my mom and her friend. After that, they would still go, but I was persona non grata. Really? Yeah. And one thing I always used to love to do is make my mom's friends laugh. And they would laugh because I was funny, but it was sometimes not always like they want to be having their conversation or whatever, and I wanted to be funny. So, do you like your mom's friends? Yeah, both my parents have wonderful friends. Really, I really don't have a single friend that they don't have a single friend that I didn't ever like, that I ever felt was mean to me or anything like that. Ever, ever, ever. Because my parents would have torn them new assholes. Not my mom so much, but my dad would have. So, but they were always nice to me. Nobody ever. I can just say this. I did never have one bad interaction. It was never like one of my parents' friends snapped at me or anything like that, ever. Not once, ever. I never had a bad interaction with any of my parents' friends. And I was around them since I was a child. I was around adults a lot. And so I think I just learned how to be around adults. But I'm trying to think if I ever had one of my parents' friends even just yell at me or never, nothing. I was a good kid, but never, like not even close. And I'd be around these people so it shows they were good with kids too. Um, Never. It would have stuck out of my mind, and I would have been like, "This, I like this person, but this one day they just had it with me, and it was not that at all." And I mean, I was around these people a lot, and I'm gonna try to think of anybody who they are always all really really nice to me. Like I'm trying to think of a time when someone was mean to me, and I cannot think of any single time. Not once, not even close. Not even like she gave me this look or he gave me this look. Nothing. They were always extremely respectful and kind, and um, I'm very appreciative of them. And that's how you should be with your friends and the children of your friends. You should treat them with respect. If they ever do anything, if the kids ever do anything inappropriate, you can tell the parent, and the parent can address it with the child. You shouldn't snap at them. You want to have a good reputation in their household. Not once did you ever. Mm-mm. Even this one time when I pulled up his white hair, I can remember we thought it was funny, and my mom's friend thought it was funny. And I remember at that time I was kind of being a little bratty, maybe perhaps to tell this story, but my mom's friend was not like, shut up and let your mom talk or anything like that. Nothing like that. Um, I'm trying to think of a single time when anybody was mean to me, and it just never happened. There was no incident. No one was abusive to me. No one ever even made me feel awkward from a uh, violence way or a behavior way or sexuality way. Nothing, and that's a blessing. My parents have amazing friends. I'm trying to think of a single time, and it just does not exist. I would have to be making something up. All of my parents' friends, they were like extremely diverse and extremely funny. They're That's about the only thing they all had in common. They were all funny. I don't think my parents had any non-funny friends. Maybe if they did, they all had good senses of humor. Not one time though. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people out there have bad interactions with their parents' friends. Never, never, ever, not even close. And that's how you should be. Israel, if you're watching this, that's how you should feel. You don't want to make people feel awkward. Never felt awkward in front of any of my parents' friends. Not once. Not, no. I always felt very, um, my parents' friends were always very generous to us and kind to us and um, warm and fun and good influences. I'm trying to think of something that my parents' friends did that wasn't even a good influence. And I could say, like, everybody drank back then, everybody smoked back then, though my parents didn't smoke. Um, Not like that. My mother never ever smoked anything. And if anything, my dad never had maybe a cigar, but that's somewhat different when he was golfing or something like that. But never, not like a daily thing. It would only be like, but my mom has never smoked anything, ever, not anything. Um, and, but I'm saying, like, did you ever see your parents' friends drunk? Nobody ever got out of control. Um, we might have had somebody who had to stay at the house or something, but never, never anything bad. Like, they had a perfect score. All of my parents' friends. So if you ever know my parents or knew my parents, I have an incredible high high respect for you all, because I'm sure that people come in and they do not have the same interact. They did not have the same interactions. I'm trying to think of a single person who even I felt um, ever felt uh, made no one ever made me feel awkward. Everybody always made me feel safe. Um, as a kid, my parents had friends who had another son around my age with the same name, and even his mother would make sure to say his middle name so I would not get confused because this kid was always getting into trouble, but I was not. And um, but she didn't want me to feel like I was getting picked on or anything like that. And I can't say the same. I'm sure that my parents, I don't think they ever made any. If anything, they ever acted in good faith. But at least the people who with whom I had encounters, they were all really wonderful people. And my parents have tons of friends. Like, I'm trying to think of one bad interaction. One time somebody yelled at me as a little kid. I was running around or something, or I broke something, but I didn't really break anything, thankfully. Um, no, just really good people. You don't remember anybody who yelled at you for anything? No. So shout out to them for making a young person feel not only valued, safe, appreciated, and that's how your friends' children should feel about you. They should never feel that you made a comment that made them feel awkward, or you berated them, or you were mean in any way. If it happens, it happens. But just know, if it ever happened, I'd be sitting here telling some fucking story about somebody like XYZ, they're such a dick. But it was never nothing. Nothing. I'm trying to think. They were all just absolutely perfect. All right. With that being said, Tree of Life.
Distinguish it from the tree of life that appears alongside the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Genesis.
Hold on. I want to talk about that too.
The tree of life, Hebrew, Romanized, A-I or no, Romanized, I-N, lit, tree, is a diagram used in rabbinical Judaism and Kabbalah and other mystical traditions derived from it. It is usually referred to as the Kabbalistic tree of life to distinguish it from the tree of life that appears alongside the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Genesis creation narrative, as well as the archetypal tree of life.
So this is usually referred to as a Kabbalistic tree of life. We're going to learn about the tree of life in Genesis as well, Bereshit.
Simon Parpala asserted that the concept of a tree of life with different spheres encompassing aspects of reality traces its origin. Simon Parpala asserted that the tree of life, Hebrew, Romanized, A-I or no, Romanized, I-N, lit, tree, is a diagram used in rabbinical Judaism and Kabbalah and other mystical traditions.
Did I say it's 19 days? I think I did, but whatever.
Simon Parpala The tree of life, Hebrew, Romanized, AI or no, Romanized, IN, lit, tree, is a diagram used in rabbinical Judaism and Kabbalah and other mystical traditions derived from it. It is usually referred to as the Kabbalistic tree of life to distinguish it from the tree of life that appears alongside the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Genesis creation narrative as well as the archetypal tree of life found in many cultures. Simon Parpala asserted that the concept of a tree of life with different spheres encompassing aspects of reality traces its origins back to the Neo-Assyrian Empire in the 9th century BCE. The Assyrians assigned moral values and specific numbers to Mesopotamian deities similar to those used in Kabbalah and claims that the state tied these to sacred tree images as a model of the king parallel to the idea of Adam Kadmon. However, J.H. Changes states that the Elon should be regarded as primarily indebted to the Porphyrian tree and maps of the celestial spheres rather than to any speculative ancient sources, Assyrian or otherwise. Kabbalah's beginnings date to the Middle Ages, originating in the Vavir and the Zohar, although the earliest extant Hebrew Kabbalistic manuscripts dating to the late 13th century contain diagrams, including one labeled Tree of Wisdom,
did the
and now iconic
Bahar
Tree of Life
as
emerged
well?
during the 14th century. The iconic representation first appeared in print on the cover of the Latin translation of Gates of Light in the year 1516. Scholars have traced the origin of the art in the Portalusis cover to Johann Reuchlin. Description. The Tree of Life usually consists of 10 or 11 notes symbolizing different archetypes and 22 paths connecting the notes. The notes are often arranged into 3 columns to represent that they belong to a common category. In Kabbalah, the notes are called sephirah. They are usually represented as circles in the paths. Hebrew, Romanized, in Oro, are usually represented as lines. The notes usually represent encompassing aspects of existence, God, or the human psyche. The paths usually represent the relationship between the concepts ascribed to the spheres or a symbolic description of the requirements to go from one sphere to another. The columns are usually symbolized as pillars. These usually represent different kinds of moral values, electric charges, or types of ceremonial magic. The sephirah are the 10 spheres on the Tree of Life. Each sephirah, singular of sephirah, represents a different aspect of the divine, as well as aspects of human consciousness and existence. These are, from top to bottom, an 11th sephirah, dot, appears in some diagrams of the tree halfway between Keter, note 1, and Tiferet, note 6, dot, translated to knowledge, is the location, the mystical state, where all 10 sephirah in the Tree of Life are united as one, serves as the culmination of all other sephirahs. These sephirah are often associated with the 4 celestial worlds of the Kabbalah. The diagram is also used in Christian Kabbalah, Hermetic Kabbalah, and Theosophy. The notes are also associated with deities, angels, celestial bodies, moral values, single colors or combinations of them, and specific numbers. History. Paolo Riccio's son, Jerome Hieronymus, actively exchanged letters and shared his father's work with Reuchlin before publication. Thus, in the year 1516, Reuchlin's diagram came to appear on the cover of the Paolo Riccio's Latin translation of Joseph ben Abraham Jucatilis Gates of Light. The diagram only had 17 paths and, at the time, the concepts of 10 spheres and 22 letters were still distinct in the literature. In 1573, a version sketched by Franciscus Siletus appeared in Cesare, Italy, De Divinis Attributis. This version introduced several innovations that would reappear in later versions. All the spheres were of the same size. The lines became wide paths. The spheres were aligned into 3 distinct columns. Malkuth was connected to 3 spheres, and astrological symbols for the known celestial bodies were used in conjunction with the Hebrew names to label the spheres. However, it also had only 17 paths, albeit distributed differently. Reuchlin's version was reprinted in Johann Pistorius' compilation of 1587. Finally, several versions from unknown artists introducing 21 and 22 paths appeared in the posthumous print editions of Moses Cordevero's Partis Rimonym between 1592 and 1609. However, the diagrams with 22 paths lacked consistency with each other and none of them had the 22 letters. Between 1652 and 1654, Athanasius Kircher published his version of the tree in Oedipus Egypticus. According to 20th century occult writer Aleister Crowley, Kircher designed his diagram in a syncretic attempt to reconcile several distinct ideas. This heavily annotated version, self-termed sephirotic system, introduced more innovations, abstract concepts, divine names, the 22 Hebrew letters for each path, and new astrological symbols. Between 1677 and 1684, Christian Norvan Rosenroth published Kabbalah Tenuta. The first volume concluded with an apparatus featuring 5 Ilanot, or Kabbalistic trees, representing various aspects of Lurianic cosmology. 4 of these were based on Ilanot that had been designed by Jewish Kabbalists over the preceding half-century. 1. His figures 8-12 was designed by Nor based on his reading of select passages of Naphtali Hertz Ben Yaakov Elchinan's 1648 Emet HaMelech. Consequently, according to contemporary students of Western esotericism, rather than to scholars of Jewish Kabbalah, 2 versions are now widely circulated. One where Malkuth has 1 path, owing to Reuchlin's original, and another where Malkuth has 3 paths, owing to several later versions, both having 22 paths in total, corresponding each to a Hebrew letter, owing to Kircher's syncretism. With the resurgence of occultism in the 19th century, many new versions appeared, but without major innovations. In Jewish mysticism, according to a Chabad source, the Tree of Life is to be interpreted in the following way. The tree represents a series of divine emanations of God's creation itself ex nihilo, the nature of revealed divinity, the human soul, and the spiritual path of ascent by man. In this way, Kabbalists developed the symbol into a full model of reality, using the tree to depict a map of creation. The symbolic configuration is made of 10 spiritual principles, but 11 can be shown, since Keter and Dot are interchangeable. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is equivalent to the 10 spheres seen from the last sphere of the diagram, Malkuth, and the original tree of life is equivalent to the 10 spheres seen from the middle sphere of the diagram, Tiferet. Kabbalists believe the tree of life to be a diagrammatic representation of the process by which the universe came into being. On the Tree of Life, the beginning of the universe is placed in a space above the first sphere, named Keter or crown in English. It is not always pictured in reproductions of the Tree of Life, but is referred to universally as Or Ein Sof, Hebrew, Romanized, endless light. To Kabbalists, it symbolizes that point beyond which our comprehension of the origins of being cannot go. It is considered to be an infinite nothingness out of which the first thing, usually understood by Kabbalists to be something approximating energy, exploded to create a universe of multiple things. Kabbalists also do not envision time and space as pre-existing and place them at the next 3 stages on the Tree of Life. First is Keter, which is thought of as the product of the contraction of Ein Sof into a singularity of infinite energy or limitless light. In the Kabbalah, it is the primordial energy out of which all things are created. The next stage is Chakma, or wisdom in English, which is considered to be the primordial masculine energy, a stage at which the infinitely hot and contracted singularity expanded forth into space and time. It is often thought of as pure dynamic energy of an infinite intensity forever propelled forth at a speed faster than light. Next comes Bina, or understanding in English, which is thought of as the primordial feminine energy, the supernal mother of the universe which receives the energy of Chakma, the father, cooling and nourishing it into the multitudinous forms present throughout the whole cosmos. It is also seen as the beginning of time itself. Numbers are very important to Kabbalists, and the Hebrew letters of the alphabet also have a numerical value. Each stage of the emanation of the universe on the tree of life is numbered meaningfully from 1, Keter, to 10, Malkah. Each number is thought to express the nature of its sphere. The first three spheres, called the supernal spheres, are considered to be the primordial energies of the universe. The next stages of evolution on the tree of life are considered to exist beyond a space on the tree, called the abyss, between the supernals and the other spheres, because their levels of being are so distinct from each other that they appear to exist in two totally different realities. The supernal spheres exist on a plane of divine energy. This is why another correspondence for Bina is the idea of suffering, because the supernal maternal energy gives birth to a world that is inherently excluded from that divine union. After Bina, the universe begins building the materials it will need to fulfill its evolution, and it creates new combinations of those materials until it is so dense that, by the stage of Malkah, the initial pure limitless energy has solidified into the physical universe. Since its energies are the basis of all creation, the tree of life can potentially be applied to any area of life, especially the inner world of man, from the subconscious all the way to what Kabbalists call the higher self. The tree of life speaks not only of the origins of the physical universe out of the unimaginable, but also of humanity's place in it. Since man is invested with the mind, consciousness in the Kabbalah is thought of as the fruit of the physical world, through whom the original infinite energy can experience and express itself as a finite entity. After the energy of creation has condensed into matter, it is thought to reverse its course back up the tree until it is once again united with its true nature, Keter. Thus the Kabbalist seeks to know himself and the universe as an expression of God, and to make the journey of return using the stages charted by the spheres, until he has come to the realization he sought.
So what does it mean? I don't know. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. But it does say superconscious, one, Kether, crown, meaning, Thalmio. Conscious is two, Chachma, wisdom, Gorgio, and conscious intellect. I should say conscious intellect is Chachma and Chokmia, 2 and 3, Bina, intelligence, understanding, Satario. Conscious emotions, 4 is Chesed, kindness, Ga'ag, Shekla. Conscious emotions, 5, Gerua, discipline, Goachab. Conscious emotions, 6, Tiferet, glory, Thag, Giriron. 7 is Netzrach, victory, Arab, Zirak. 8 is Hod, splendor, Samael. 9 is Yesod, foundation, Gamliel. 10 is Malkuth, kingdom, Lilith. And 11 is Da'at, knowledge, Belial. Alright, for what are you looking? Bina. Fuck, so we should probably learn about all of these, which is going to take a long fucking time. That's okay. Oh, Bahir. Bahir, Sefer Bahir. Okay, let's learn about this bitch.
Bahir or Sefer HaBahir, Hebrew pronunciation. Book of Clarity or Book of Illumination is an anonymous mystical word, attributed to a 1st century rabbinic sage Nehunai ben Hakana, a contemporary of Yochanan ben Zakkai, because it begins with the words, Nehunai ben Hakana said. It is also known as Midrash of Rabbi Nehunai ben Hakana. First mentioned in late 12th century Languedoc-Provençal works, the Bahir is an early work of the esoteric Jewish mystical tradition that eventually became known as Kabbalah. The work is considered by scholars to be pseudepigraphical, composed in Provence in the late 12th century. Title: Maimonides, in his commentary on the Torah, Genesis 1, is one of the first to quote the work under the title Midrash Nehunai ben Hakana. Nehunai ben Hakana said, the opening sentence. Among medieval Kabbalists it became known as Sefer HaBahir, taken from its opening comment. One verse says, and now men see not the light which is bright, Bahir, in the skies, job 37 hours, and 21 minutes. Authorship. Kabbalists described authorship of the Bahir to Nehunai, a rabbi of the Mishnaic era, who lived around 100 CE. Medieval Kabbalists write that the Bahir did not come down to them as a unified book, but rather in pieces found in scattered scrolls and booklets. The scattered and fragmentary nature of the Bahir's text, which sometimes ends discussion in mid-sentence, and which often jumps randomly from topic to topic, supports this claim. The historical critical study of this book points to a later date of composition. For some time, scholars believe that it was written in the 13th century by Isaac the Blind, or by those in his school. The first sentence, and now men see not the light which is bright in the skies, Job 37 hours, and 21 minutes, being isolated, and having no connection with what follows, was taken to be an allusion to the blindness of its author. However, modern scholars of Kabbalah now hold that at least part of the Babir was an adaptation of an older work, the Sefer ViralRabbi. This older book is mentioned in some of the works of the Geonim. However, no complete copies of Sefer ViralRabbi are still in existence. However, quotes from this book can still be found in some older works. Scholar Rabbi Meraz argues that elements in the Babir date back to 10th century Babylonia, as witnessed by the acceptance of the Babylonian system of vowel points, which later fell into disuse, while other elements were written in 12th century Provence. Many scholars of Kabbalah hold that the Babir adds Gnostic elements to the older work. The question of how much Gnosticism has influenced Kabbalah is one of the major themes of modern-day research on Kabbalah. See the works of Gershom Scholem and Moshe Adel for more information. History. The 13th century Kabbalist, Rabbi Isaac Cohen, reports...
Hold on. We talked about this. Kabbalists believe that the oral tradition of the Bahir goes right to the 1st century Common Era. It is possible that some secret manuscripts existed before the publication in the 12th century. Around 1174, the Bahir was published by the Province School of Kabbalists and was circulated to a limited audience in manuscript form. The earliest extant manuscript dates to the 13th century. Okay, I remember reading this. There is a striking affinity between the symbolism of Sefer HaBahir on the one hand, and the speculations of the Gnostics and the theory of the ions on the other. The fundamental problem in the study of the book is the affinity based on an as yet unknown historical link between the Gnosticism and Mishnaic and Talmudic era and sources from which the material in Sefer HaBahir is derived, or should it possibly be seen as a purely psychological phenomenon? For instance, a spontaneous upsurge from the depths of the soul's imagination without any historical continuity. Bahir, Encyclopedia Judaica, Keter
Reports that the
Padagosha.
Sefer HaBahir came from the land of Israel to the early pietists, the sages of Ashkenaz, the Kabbalists of Germany, and from there to the early wise men in Provence who chase after all sorts of written records of wisdom, those who know the divine, supernal knowledge, but they saw only part of the book and not all of it because they did not see it in its entirety, in its complete form. Several distinct literary layers can be distinguished in Babir, some written in the East at the end of the 9th century or in the early 10th century, and some in 12th century Provence. The book Babir's use of the Babylonian grammar and vocalization system, which also reflects a different pronunciation and was widely utilized throughout the East, decisively proves the existence of an Oriental layer. The Babylonian vocalization, as opposed to the Tiberian one used in Hebrew to this day, is mainly upper, that is, marked above the letters, and is characterized, among other properties, by the second being pronounced like a pata. Only if Babir was written in a region in which the Babylonian system was in use can the claim the Lord placed a pata above a letter, and a second beneath be meaningful. The pata is upper according to the Babylonian vocalization system, whereas the second is lower according to the Tiberian system. Only according to the Babylonian system is it possible to pronounce this combination of vowels at the same time, as they both have the same pronunciation, the short U. The use of the Babylonian vocalization system to symbolize the holy is evidence of the passage's date of composition. At the beginning of the 10th century, a debate arose between Jewish communities over which grammatical system most faithfully represented the Torah. In other words, how was it pronounced when it was given to Moses on Mount Sinai? This debate ended with the victory of the Tiberian system and with the understanding that the Babylonian system reflected a foreign influence on the Hebrew language. Thereafter, one could no longer employ it as a proper symbolic instrument for the holy. Hence, the Babylonian layer must have been written before this debate was concluded. Contents. The Babir assumes the form of an exegetic midrash on the first chapters of Genesis. It is divided into 60 short paragraphs or 140 passages, and is in the form of a dialogue between master and disciples. The main characters are Amora, or Amore, and Rahame, or Rehume. Some statements in the book are attributed to the Regia, Johanan, Ban, rabbis mentioned in the later midrashic literature. The Babir contains commentaries explaining the mystical significance of biblical verses, the mystical significance of the shapes of the Hebrew letters, the mystical significance of the cantillation signs and vowel points on the letters, the mystical significance of statements in the Sefer Yetzirah, Book of Creation, and the use of sacred names in magic. There are 200 aphorism-like paragraphs. Each paragraph uses references from the Torah to expand upon its presentation. As with all Kabbalistic texts, the meanings are highly symbolic and subject to numerous opportunities for interpretation. A common analogy is used throughout. A king, his servants, his daughter, and his gardens are all used to explain a meaning, first of Torah and then in general, of the main topic of the text. The paragraphs refer to each other in segments and are broken into 5 sections in the Aryeh Kaplan translation. These sections are loosely grouped together, but they do more or less stay within the underlying themes given by their title. Sections. Section 1, B116 consists of commentary on the first verses of Genesis or of the creation story. Section 2, B1744, talks about the Aleph Bet or the Hebrew alphabet and gets its inspiration from the Sefer Yetzirah, which links these letters of creation to the overall mysticism presented in the Torah. Section 3, B45-122, concerns the 7 voices and the Sephirah. Section 4, B124-193, is grouped under the section title of 10 Sephirah. Section 5, B193-200, completes the discourse and is called Mysteries of the Soul. Sephirah. The Hebrew word Sephirah was first described in Sefer Yetzirah as corresponding to the 10 basic numbers, and did not possess the meaning that later Kabbalists gave to it. It is in the Babir that we find the first discussion of the Kabbalistic concept of Sephirah as divine attributes and powers emanating from God. Why are they called Sephirah? Because it is written, the heavens, Mesoprim, tell, God's glory, Psalms 19, 2, Babir 125. Creation of the universe. The world, according to the Babir, is not the product of an act of creation. Like God, this book existed from all eternity, not only in potentiality, but in actuality, and the creation consisted merely in the appearance of that which was latent in the first Sephirah, or Haganaz, or, as it is called, Keter Elion, which emanated from God. This Sephirah gave birth to Chokmah, wisdom, from which emanated being and intelligence. From these three, which are the superior Sephirah, and from the primary principles of the universe, emanated, one after another, the seven inferior Sephirah from which all material beings are formed. All the 10 Sephirah are linked one to the other, and every one of them has an active and a passive quality emanating and receiving. The efflux of one Sephirah from another is symbolized in the form of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Thus the letter Gimel, shaped like a tube open at each end, represents a Sephirah, which receives strength at one end and discharges it at the other. The 10 Sephirah are the energy of God, the forms in which his being manifests itself. Reincarnation. The Babir adopts the concept of reincarnation to solve the question of why the just may suffer in this world, why the wicked may be prosperous, the just may have been wicked in their former lives, and the wicked righteous. Editions and commentaries. One of the most accurate manuscripts of the final form of Sefer Babir was written in 1331 by Meir ben Solomon Abi Salula. His commentary on the Babir was anonymously published as Orhaganaz, the Hidden Light. One of the most accurate manuscripts of the final form of Sefer Babir was written in 1331 by Meir ben Solomon Abi Salula. His commentary on the Babir was anonymously published as Orhaganaz, the Hidden Light. It has been translated into German by Gershom Scholar, 1923, and into English by R.A. Kaplan. Recently it has been critically edited by Saverio Campanini. See the Book of Babir, Flavius Mithridates' Latin translation, the Hebrew text, and an English version, edited by Saverio Campanini with the foreword by Giulio Busi, Torino, Nino Iragno editor to. Dr. Eddie Wolf, the National Yard Site found Dr. Wolf's father, Cyrus Wolf, Shalom, Ben, and Steve Hirsch, and we think that Anna was the name of the father, then has a covered all of Mordecai and related stories.
So the biblical tree of life. This one was always interesting to
In
me.
the Bible outside of Genesis, the term tree of life appears in Proverbs 3. In Judaism and Christianity, the tree of life, Hebrew, Romanized, Latin, is first described in chapter 2, verse 9 of the book of Genesis as being in the midst of the Garden of Eden with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Lignum CG Mani and Mali. After the fall of man, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Cherubim and a flaming sword are placed at the east end of the garden to guard the way to the tree of life. The tree of life has become the subject of some debate as to whether or not the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the same tree. In Judaism and Christianity, in the Bible outside of Genesis. In Judaism and Christianity, the tree of life, Hebrew, Romanized, Latin, Lignum Vitae is first described in chapter 2, verse 9 of the book of Genesis as being in the midst of the Garden of Eden with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Lignum CG Mani and Mali. After the fall of man, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Cherubim and a flaming sword are placed at the east end of the garden to guard the way to the tree of life. The tree of life has become the subject of some debate as to whether or not the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the same tree. In the Bible outside of Genesis, the term tree of life appears in Proverbs 3:18, 11:30, 13:12, 15, 4, and Revelation 2:7, 22, 2, 14, 19. It also appears in 2 Esdras 2:12, 8:52, and 4 Maccabees 18:16, which are included among the Jewish Apocrypha. According to the Greek Apocalypse of Moses, the tree of life is also called the tree of mercy. Adam believed the oil at the tree of life would relieve him of his ailments and sent Seth and Eve to the doors of the garden to beg for some oil at the tree of life. Number of trees. Carl Buddha, in his critical study of 1883, proposed that there was only one tree in the body of the Genesis narrative, and that it had been portrayed in 2 ways. One is the tree in the middle of the garden, and 2 is the forbidden tree. Klaus Westermann gave recognition to Buddy's theory in 1976. Ellen Van Wol noted that among Bible scholars the trees are almost always dealt with separately and not related to each other, and that attention is almost exclusively directed to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, whereas the tree of life is paid hardly any attention. Religious views. Christianity. Catholic Church. In the Catholic Church, the tree of life in Book of Revelation verse 2, 7 is the Eucharist. Western Christianity. In the others sought very pragmatic. In the City of God, 13.2021, Augustine of Hippo offers great allowance for spiritual interpretation. Others sought very John Calvin, commentary. Judaism. According to Jewish mythology, in the Garden of Eden there is a tree of life or the tree of souls that blossoms and produces new souls, which fall into the good, the treasury of souls. The angel Gabriel reaches into the treasury and takes out the first soul that comes into his hand. Then Lila, the angel of conception, watches over the embryo until it is born. Jewish mythology. The tree of life appears in Asherite iconography, particularly on the Lachish Ur and Pitta from Kuntalat Ashra, where it is flanked by ibexes. The tree's design, with buds, flowers, and possibly almond drupes, resembles the menorah, which is thought to represent a stylized almond tree in Exodus 25 hours and 31 minutes 36. This suggests a continuation of Asherah's cultic representation in the temple. Scholars have explored these connections, noting parallels between sacred trees, Asherah, and the menorah. Kabbalah. The tree of life is represented in several examples of sacred geometry and is central in particular to the Kabbalah, where it is represented as a diagram of 10 notes called Sephirah, singular Sephirah, or the 10 emanations or attributes of God. It portrays how God, the Creator, demonstrates His creative energy throughout the universe, via angels and then to humans. Each of the tree's branches, Sephirah, represents a different category of creative force that is overseen by a different archangel. Believers claim that by focusing on the various energies one by one, people can develop a closer spiritual union with God. Kabbalah is an esoteric method, discipline, and school of thought in Jewish mysticism. In popular culture, the tree of life is mentioned explicitly in the 2006 film The Fountain. It is discussed in connection with the Hebrew Genesis book. In the 1995 anime Neon Genesis Evangelion, beings known as angels possess the fruit of life, which provides them with infinite energy, enabling regeneration and shadow shifting. Shadow shifting, among other ability.
Shadow shifting.
In Christianity and Judaism, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, Tiberian Hebrew, Romanized, Addo WR, Latin, Lignum Sine Boni et Mali, is one of two specific trees in the story of the Garden of Eden in Genesis 2:3, along with the tree of life. Alternatively, some scholars have argued that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is just another name for the tree of life. In Genesis. Narrative. In Genesis. Narrative. Genesis 2 narrates that God places the man, Adam, in a garden with trees whose fruits he may eat, but forbids him to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God forms a woman, Eve, after this command is given. In Genesis 3, a serpent persuades Eve to eat from its forbidden fruit, then she also lets Adam taste it. Consequently, God expels them from the garden. Unlike the tree of life, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil does not appear anywhere else in the Hebrew Bible or in other ancient Semitic cultures. However, the phrase knowledge of good and evil does appear elsewhere in the Bible, e.g., Deuteronomy 1:39 and 2 Samuel 14:17-20. Meaning of good and evil. The phrase in Hebrew, tav mara, literally translates as good and evil. This may be an example of the type of figure of speech known as verism, a literary device that pairs opposite terms together in order to create a general meaning, so that the phrase good and evil would simply imply everything. This is seen in the Egyptian expression evil good, which is normally employed to mean everything. However, if tree of the knowledge of good and evil is to be understood to mean a tree whose fruit imparts knowledge of everything, this phrase does not necessarily denote a moral concept. This view is held by several scholars. Given the context of disobedience to God, other interpretations of the implications of this phrase also demand consideration. Robert Alter emphasizes the point that when God forbids the man to eat from that particular tree, he says that if he does so, he is doomed to die. The Hebrew behind this is in a form regularly used in the Hebrew Bible for issuing death sentences. However, there are myriad modern scholarly interpretations regarding the term. Given the context of disobedience to God, other interpretations of the implications of this phrase also demand consideration. Robert Alter emphasizes the point that when God forbids the man to eat from that particular tree, he says that if he does so, he is doomed to die. The Hebrew behind this is in a form regularly used in the Hebrew Bible for issuing death sentences. However, there are myriad modern scholarly interpretations regarding the term, the knowledge of good and evil, in Genesis 2:3, such as wisdom, omniscience, sexual knowledge, moral discrimination, maturity, and other qualities. According to scholar Nathan French, the term likely means the knowledge for administering reward and punishment, suggesting that the knowledge forbidden by Yahweh and yet acquired by the humans in Genesis 2:3 is the wisdom for wielding ultimate power. Religious views. Judaism. Jewish sources suggest different possible identities for the tree. A fig tree, as fig leaves were used to clothe Adam and Eve after the sin. A grapevine, as nothing brings healing to the world like wine. A stalk of wheat, as a child does not know how to say father and mother until he tastes grain. An etrog, as the description in Genesis 3:6 matches the etrog fruit's beautiful appearance, or else the etrog tree's allegedly tasty bark, or a nut tree. In Jewish tradition, the tree of knowledge and the eating of its fruit represents the beginning of the mixture of good and evil together. Before that time, the two were separate, and evil had only a nebulous existence in potential. While free choice did exist before eating the fruit, evil existed as an entity separate from the human psyche, and it was not in human nature to desire it. Eating and internalizing the forbidden fruit changed this, and thus was born the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. According to Rashi, the sin came about because Eve added an additional clause to the divine command, neither shall you touch it. By saying this, Eve added to YHWH's command, and thereby came to detract from it, as it is written, do not add to his words. Proverbs 30:6. However, in Legends of the Jews, it was Adam who had devoutly forbidden Eve to touch the tree even though God had only mentioned the eating of the fruit. According to one source, Eve also fed the fruit to the animals, leading to their mortality as well. In the Kabbalah, the sin of the tree of knowledge, called Chidit Sadat, brought about the great task of Purim, sifting through the mixture of good and evil in the world to extract and liberate the sparks of holiness trapped therein. Since evil no longer had independent existence, it henceforth depended on holiness to draw down the divine life force, on whose leftovers it then feeds and derives existence. Once evil is separated from holiness through Purim, its source of life is cut off, causing the evil to disappear. This is accomplished through observance of the 613 commandments in the Torah, which deal primarily with physical objects wherein good and evil are mixed together. The sin of the tree caused God's presence, Shekinah, to depart from earth. In Kabbalah, the task of Purim rectifies the sin of the tree and causes the Shekinah to return. Christianity. In Christian tradition, Augustine of Hippo. In Western Christian art. Gnosticism. Uniquely, the Gnostic religion held that the tree was entirely positive or even sacred. For this saga, it was the archons who told Adam and Eve not to eat from its fruit, before lying to them by claiming they would die after tasting it. Later in the story, an instructor is sent from the pleroma by the Eons to save humanity and reveal Gnosis. This savior does so by telling Adam and Eve that eating the fruit is the way into salvation. Examples of the narrative can be found within the Gnostic manuscripts on the origin of the world and the secret book of John. Manichaeism, which has been considered a Gnostic sect, echoes these notions as well, presenting the primordial aspect of Jesus as the instructor. Islam. In the Quran, the tree is never referred to as the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but rather typically as the tree, or, in the words of Iblis, as the tree of immortality. Muslims believe that when God created Adam and Eve, he told them that they could enjoy everything in the garden except this tree, and so Satan appeared to them, telling them the only reason God forbade them to eat from the tree was that they would become angels or immortal. When they ate from this tree, their nakedness appeared to them, and they began to sew together leaves from the garden for their covering. The Quran mentions the sin as being a slip. Consequently, they repented to God and asked for his forgiveness, and were forgiven. In Islamic tradition, the forbidden fruit is not specified in the Quran, and according to Sunni belief, in the Shia tradition, the forbidden fruit is considered wheat or barley, not an apple as within Western Christian tradition. In Quran Al-Araf 27, God states, children of Adam, let not Satan tempt you as he brought your parents out of the garden, stripping them of their garments to show them their shameful parts. Surely he sees you, he and his tribe, from where you see them not. We have made the Satans the friends of those who do not believe. Similar depictions in Akkadian seal. A cylinder seal, known as the Adam and Eve cylinder seal, from post-Akkadian periods in Mesopotamia, c. 23rd, 22nd century BCE, has been linked to the Adam and Eve story. Assyriologist George Smith, 1840-1876, described the seal as having two facing figures, male and female seated on each side of a tree, holding out their hands to the fruit, while between their backs is a serpent, giving evidence that the fall of man account was known in early times of Babylonia. The British Museum disputes this interpretation, and holds that it is a common image from the period depicting a male deity being worshipped by a woman, with no reason to connect the scene with the Book of Genesis. Keter or Keter, Hebrew, Romanized, Keter, Lid, crown, pronunciation, is the first of the 10 Sephirot in the Kabbalistic tree of life, symbolizing the divine will and the initial impulse towards creation from the Ein Sof, or infinite source. It represents pure consciousness and transcends human understanding, often referred to as nothing or the hidden light. Keter is associated with the divine name Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, meaning I am that I am, which was revealed to Moses from the burning bush, and it embodies the qualities of absolute compassion and humility. Its meaning is crown, and it is interpreted as both the topmost of the Sephirot and the regal crown thereof. Keter is positioned at the top of the tree of life, sitting above and between Chokmah on the right and Bina on the left, and above Tifereth. It is often depicted with three primary paths, one leading to Chokmah, another to Bina, and the third to Tifereth. This positioning highlights its role as the source from which wisdom, Chokmah, and understanding, Bina emanate, and it emphasizes its connection to beauty and harmony, Tifereth, thereby facilitating the flow of divine energy through the Sephirot. Keter is called in the Zohar the most hidden of all hidden things. Moses ben Jacob Cordovero describes Keter as the source of the 13 attributes of mercy, derived from a verse in the book of Micah. These attributes emphasize compassion, forgiveness, and humility. Cordovero also outlines ethical behavior associated with Keter in his work The Palm Tree of Devorah, encouraging purity of thought and actions, such as always turning one's ears to hear good and avoiding anger. In Western esotericism, Keter is linked to the initial point of divine emanation, representing pure formless consciousness. It is associated with various divine and mystical figures, such as the Archangel Metatron and the Tetragrammaton of the holy living creatures. Etymology and names. The Hebrew word Keter translates to crown. Since a crown is worn above the head, Keter symbolizes the highest level of the Sephirot and the divine will in Kabbalah. Keter is also known as nothing, Ayin, or the hidden light, or Haganaz, reflecting its abstract and ineffable nature. Keter is referenced in key Kabbalistic texts such as the Vayera and the Zohar, where it is described as the most hidden of all hidden things. History. The concept of Keter has evolved significantly within Kabbalistic thought. Early references to Keter can be found in foundational texts such as the Sefer Yetzirah and Vayera. In these texts, Keter is described as the first emanation, representing the initial divine will in the beginning of creation. The Zohar, a cornerstone of Kabbalistic literature, describes Keter as the most hidden of all hidden things, emphasizing its transcendence and ineffability. Medieval Kabbalists, including Moses ben Jacob Cordovero, 1522-1570, and Isaac Luria, 1534-1572, further elaborated on Keter's attributes, solidifying its role as the highest Sephirot and its importance in the divine emanation process. These interpretations influenced later Kabbalistic and Hasidic teachings. Kabbalah made its way into Western esotericism during the Renaissance, largely through the efforts of figures like Johannes Reuchlin, 1455-1522, who studied and wrote about Kabbalah extensively. In the 19th century, Eliphas Levi, 1810-1875, further integrated Kabbalistic ideas into Western occult traditions. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, founded by Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers, 1854-1918, and others, incorporated Kabbalah into their teachings, significantly shaping modern Western esotericism. Aleister Crowley, 1875-1947, a prominent figure in Western occultism, also utilized Kabbalistic concepts in his works, particularly in the Book of Thoth, which connects the tarot to the Tree of Life. Description. According to the Vayera, what are the 10 utterances? The first is supreme crown. Blessed be his name and his people. The first Sephirot is called the crown. Since the crown is worn above the head, the crown therefore refers to things that are above the mind's abilities to comprehend. All of the other Sephirot are likened to the body which starts with the head and wins its way down into action. But the crown of a king lies above the head and connects the concept of monarchy, which is abstract and intangible, with the tangible and concrete head of the king. The crown endows the person with the power and prerogatives of royalty. Keter represents the primal stirrings of intent in the Ein Sof, infinity, or the arousal of desire to come forth into the very life of being. But in this sense, although it contains all the potential for content, it contains no content itself, and is therefore called nothing, the hidden light, and the air that cannot be grasped, being desire to bring the world into being. Keter is absolute compassion. Keter is associated with two Partsufim or divine personas, Erech-Anpin and Adikyonin. Erech-Anpin, the vast countenance, symbolizes boundless mercy and spiritual bliss. Onagwachani, while Adikyonin, the ancient of days, represents the primal roots of divine consciousness and will. Ratson, in the symbolic family hierarchy, Adikyonin is the great-grandfather, and Erech-Anpin is the grandfather. Together, these Partsufim reflect Keter's dual nature as both an all-encompassing force and a deeply concealed, primordial essence. The name of God associated with Keter is Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, Hebrew, the name through which he revealed himself to Moses from the burning bush. Keter, although being the highest Sephirot of its world, receives from the Sephirot of Malkuth of the domain above it. See Sephirot. The uppermost Keter sits below no other Sephirot, although it is below or Ein Sof, infinite light, which is the source of all Sephirot. Qualities. Color. Keter is often associated with brilliance or translucent white. This color symbolizes the pure, undifferentiated light of the Ein Sof, infinite, representing the ultimate potential and the source of all creation. R.A. Kaplan describes Keter as being associated with radiant, brilliant light that transcends human perception, symbolizing spiritual purity and divine will. Gershom Scholem notes that Keter's primal light is a metaphor for the most abstract and sublime aspect of the divine. Moshe Liddell refers to this light as the hidden light, embodying the concept of potentiality and the source of all subsequent emanations. Ethical behavior. Moses ben Jacob Cordovero, in the Palm Tree of Devorah, discusses ethical behavior that man should follow, related to the qualities of the Sephirot, in order that man might emulate his creator. Humility is the first, because although Keter is the highest, it is ashamed to look at its cause, and instead gazes at those below it. One's thoughts should be pure, one's forehead should display no harshness, one's ears should always turn to hear good, one's eyes should distance themselves from noticing evil, always looking at the good, one's nose should be free from the breath of anger, one's face should always shine, and his mouth should express nothing except good. 13 attributes of mercy. Through discussion of a line in the book of Micah, 13 attributes are associated with Keter. Who is God like you, who pardons iniquity and forgives the transgressions of the remnant of his heritage? He does not maintain his anger forever, for he delights in kindness. He will again show us compassion. He will vanquish our iniquities, and you will cast all their sins into the depths of the sea. Show faithfulness to Jacob, kindness to Abraham, which you have sworn to our fathers from days of old. Michah, 7:18-20. Accordingly, the 13 attributes are derived from this and are described in great detail. Additionally, the 13 attributes of mercy were described by Rabbi Chizkiah in an allegorical depiction of a lily among thorns. The metaphor in all is known and taught as the lily amongst the thorns, a phrase found in Shir Hashirit 2. A summary. The secret of spiritual protection is revealed through a richly metaphorical discourse given by Rabbi Rothschild. The rabbi explains that the spiritual forces that protect and watch over us are called the 13 attributes of mercy. They are transmitted into our physical world through the first 13 words of the Torah. When judgments are decreed against us, these 13 forces can safeguard us from their influence. We begin drawing this light of protection to ourselves at the very moment we begin to browse and behold the mystical shapes and sequences of the Aramaic text, and to learn the spiritual insights presented there. Practical applications. In practical Kabbalistic practices, Keter is approached through meditation and visualization techniques aimed at connecting with the divine will and transcendent consciousness. Practitioners often focus on the attributes of Keter, such as absolute compassion and humility, to cultivate these qualities within themselves. Meditative exercises may involve visualizing the crown above the head, symbolizing the flow of divine energy into one's being. Reciting sacred texts and prayers associated with Keter, such as Ehiyah Asher Ehiyah, is also common, aiming to align oneself with the highest level of spiritual awareness and intention. In Western esotericism, Keter is considered the purest form of consciousness, transcending time and categories, originating from the Ein Sof or limitless light, and initiating the process of divine emanation that culminates in Malkuth. Associated with the divine name Ehiyah, the archangel that presides over it is Metatron. The order of angels that resides in it are the holy living creatures, Jayaf HaKadosh, and its physical manifestation is said to be the first squirrelings of the cosmos, Prime and Mobile, Rashid HaChilgalin. In the mystical Kabbalah, Dion Fortune describes Keter as a timeless point of pure consciousness, marking the beginning of emanation. In the Golden Dawn tradition, Keter is identified with the planet Neptune, reflecting its connection to the mystical and the unknown. In Theosophy and Thelema, Keter is analogous to Tiamat and Katz and Pek, respectively. A.E. Waite wrote that Rabbi Azriel ben Menachem, a student of Isaac the Blind, in his commentary on the Sephirah granted a particular color to each Sephirah, yet these do not agree with the colors given in the Zohar, where Keter is called colorless, Tiferet purple, and Malkuth sapphire blue. In Aleister Crowley's paper 777, Keter is associated with white brilliance, the four aces of the tarot, Peregrine, Wotan, Zeus, the Trinity, Almond and Flower, Diamond, Elixir Vitae, Shanti, and Death. He also connects Keter to the Klipothic order of Thamiel. Paths. Keter connects to three primary paths, each leading to different Sephirah then associated with specific tarot cards. The path to Chakma, symbolizing wisdom and the initial creative impulse, is linked to the Fool, representing potential and new beginnings. The path to Bina, representing understanding and structure, corresponds to the Magician, symbolizing mastery and manifestation. The path to Tiferet, signifying beauty, balance, and harmony, is associated with the High Priestess representing intuition and inner knowledge. These paths highlight Keter's role in channeling divine energy and insight through the Tree of Life. See also. References.
So what's the status of it?
Chakma, Hebrew, Romanized, Onan, also transliterated as Chakma. Chakma or Hatma is the biblical Hebrew word rendered as wisdom in English Bible versions. 70 Sophia, Vulgate Sapientia. It is the second of the 10 Sephirot in Kabbalah, and represents the first power of conscious intellect and subtle manifestation, emerging from Keter's pure potentiality. It embodies wisdom coming from nothingness, as highlighted in the book of Job in the Bahar. Chakma is the primordial point of divine wisdom that becomes comprehensible through Bina. In Jewish mystical texts, Chakma is described as the primordial point of divine wisdom, which shines forth from the womb of God. This point remains incomprehensible until differentiated and given form in Bina. The Zohar, an essential Kabbalistic text, emphasizes Chakma's role in the emanation process and its association with the sense of sight, as well as an inner spiritual sense of taste that precedes and arouses sight. The interplay between Chakma and Bina is crucial for understanding how abstract wisdom becomes concrete understanding. The ethical behavior associated with Chakma involves emulating its dual nature, communion with the Creator to gain wisdom and teaching others the wisdom received. This reflects the Sephirah's dual role of receiving and disseminating divine insight. Practical applications of Chakma in Kabbalistic practice include meditative techniques to cultivate wisdom, selflessness, and alignment with divine will, illustrating its central role in theoretical and applied Kabbalistic disciplines. In Western esotericism, Chakma holds a significant place within Hermetic Kabbalah, associated with analytical thinking and stability. Its corresponding divine name, Yah, the Archangel Raziel, and the angel Zophanim, as well as its tarot associations, underscore its importance in mystical and spiritual traditions. The paths connecting Chakma to Keter, Bina, Chist, and Tiferet, symbolized by corresponding tarot cards, illustrate the flow of divine wisdom through different aspects of the Tree of Life, integrating it into various levels of consciousness and action. Etymology and names. Chakma, the Hebrew term for wisdom, holds a prominent place in both Jewish mysticism and Gnostic traditions. Its etymology traces back to the Hebrew root, which conveys the concept of wisdom or insight. In Gnostic cosmology, Chakma is frequently identified with Sophia, in Greek, who embodies divine wisdom. Sophia's narrative is central to many Gnostic texts, where she is also known by the name Achath, a Greek derivation from the Hebrew word Chakma. The word occurs 149 times in the Masoretic text of the Hebrew Bible. It is cognate with the Arabic word for wisdom. Semitic root km. Adjectival Hakam wise is used as honorific, as in Talmud Chakam, lit, student of a sage, for a Torah scholar, or Hakam Bashi for a chief rabbi. Chakma is sometimes referred to as fear, Yira, in Kabbalistic texts because it represents an aspect of wisdom that is beyond measure and comprehension, because it has no measure of boundary, and therefore the mind does not have the power to grasp it. This aligns with the idea expressed in the book of Job that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. This term emphasizes the awe and reverence associated with divine wisdom, reflecting the necessary humility and respect required to truly grasp and embody it. History. Chakma, meaning wisdom, holds a foundational role in Jewish mystical texts such as the Sefer Yetzirah and the Zohar. In early Kabbalah, Chakma represents the initial divine wisdom emanating from Keter, playing a pivotal role in the unfolding of the universe. The Zohar elaborates on this by describing Chakma as the source of all wisdom and insight, crucial for the creative process. In the 16th century, Isaac Luria, a key figure in Kabbalistic thought, emphasized Chakma's importance in the cosmic process of Tzimtzum, divine contraction and tikkun, repair. Chakma initiates the process of restoring the fragmented divine light, central to Lurianic Kabbalah's understanding of creation and redemption. Contemporary Kabbalists, such as Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, have further developed the understanding of Chakma. Ashlag's interpretations highlight Chakma's role in achieving spiritual enlightenment and ethical living, viewing it as essential for understanding the divine and our place within the cosmos. Description. Chakma, the second of the 10 Sephirot, is the first power of conscious intellect within creation, and the first point of subtle manifestation, since Keter represents emptiness. According to the book of Job, wisdom comes from nothingness. According to the Bahir, the second, utterance is wisdom, as is written, YHWH acquired me at the beginning of his way, before his deeds of old, Prov 8:22, and there is no beginning but wisdom. In Rabbi R.A. Kaplan's commentary on the Bahir he says wisdom, Chakma, is therefore the first thing that the mind can grasp, and is therefore called a beginning. In the Zohar, Chakma is the primordial point which shines forth from the will of God, the starting point of creation. This point is infinitely small, and yet encompasses the whole of being. It remains incomprehensible until all things are differentiated and given shape and form in Bina, where they become intelligible. In general, the sense of sight relates to Chakma. The Zohar states that there is an inner, spiritual sense of taste in Chakma that precedes and arouses the sense of sight. Chakma appears in the configuration of the Sephirot at the top of the right axis, and corresponds to the eyes in the divine image. Zelan Elohim. These are comparable to the two eyes from which two teardrops fell into the great sea. Chachma is called eyes, and the right eye is the upper Chachma and the left eye is the lower Chachma. The word Chakma is read in the Zohar, Numbers 220b, as Kochma, the power of selflessness, or, alternatively, as Chichma, the palette of selflessness. The power of selflessness implies not only the attribute of selflessness itself, but the great creative power that selflessness entails. The palette of selflessness is the soul's ability to taste divinity by virtue of one's state of selflessness. As is said, Psalms 34:8, taste and see that God is good. Qualities. Color. Chakma is associated with several colors in Kabbalistic tradition. Gray is often linked to Chakma as it represents the blending of all colors, symbolizing comprehensive wisdom. Some traditions, especially those influenced by Western esotericism, associate Chakma with blue, which signifies clarity and expansiveness, reflecting the profound nature of divine wisdom. White is another color associated with Chakma, symbolizing purity and enlightenment, indicative of the undifferentiated light of wisdom. Ethical behavior. According to Moses ben Jacob Cordovero in the palm tree of Devorah, Chakma has two faces, one facing Keter above, and the other overseeing the other Sephirot. Therefore, to emulate this Sephirot, one aspect should be in communion with his Creator in order to increase his wisdom, and the other should be to teach others the wisdom that the Holy One has endowed him. Textual references. In the Hebrew Bible, the author of the book of Proverbs personifies divine wisdom as extant before the world was made, revealer of God, and actor as God's agent in creation. Prov 8:22-31, Wisdom 8:4-6, and Sir 1:4-9. Wisdom dwelt with God. Prov 8:22-31, Sir 24:4, and Wisdom 9:10, and, being the exclusive property of God, was as such inaccessible to human beings. Job 28 hours, and 12 minutes 13, 21, 23, 27. It was God who found wisdom. R 3:29-37, and gave her to Israel. He hath found out all the way of knowledge, and hath given it unto Jacob his servant, and to Israel his beloved. Afterward did he shew himself upon earth, and conversed with men. R 3:36-37, and Sir 24:1-12. As a female figure, Sir 1:15 and Wis 7:12. Wisdom addressed human beings. Prov 1:20-33 and 8. 1:9-6. Inviting to her feast those who are not yet wise. Prov 9:1-6. Wisdom of Solomon 7:22b8. 1 is a famous passage describing divine wisdom, including the passage. For she is the breath of the power of God, and the pure influence flowing from the glory of the Almighty. Therefore can no defiled thing fall into her. For she is the brightness of the everlasting light, the unspotted mirror of the power of God, and the image of his goodness. And being but one, she can do all things, and remaining in herself, she maketh all things new, and in all ages entering into holy souls, she maketh them friends of God, and prophets. Wisdom 7:25-27. Solomon, as the archetypal wise person, fell in love with wisdom. I loved her, and sought her out from my youth. I desired to make her my spouse, and I was a lover of her beauty. Wisdom 8:2. In the Apocrypha. The Book of Sirach, also known as Ecclesiasticus, contains significant references to Chakma. In chapter 24, wisdom speaks about her origins, role in creation, and dwelling among the people of Israel. Verses 13-17, often referred to as the riddling list of Ecclesiasticus, use a series of trees to describe wisdom. These metaphors emphasize wisdom's beauty, strength, and presence in various forms, signifying her integral role in the natural world and divine connection. Each image in the list represents different attributes of wisdom. The cedar and cypress for strength and majesty, the palm tree and rose bush for beauty and grace, the olive tree and plane tree for fruitfulness and resilience, and the aromatic plants for the pleasing and pervasive influence of wisdom. The terebinth represents spreading influence and enduring presence. In the Talmud, Chakma is also discussed in the Talmud, representing a high level of wisdom. The Talmudic order of Kokshan, related to sacred things, is described in Tractate Shabbat 31 as a significant area of study that imparts Chakma. This reflects the importance of deep scholarly engagement with sacred texts as a path to attaining wisdom. Practical applications. In practical Kabbalistic practices, Chakma is approached through meditation and contemplation to gain wisdom and insight. Practitioners focus on developing a deep sense of selflessness, as Chakma embodies the power of selflessness. Kochma. This involves visualizing the flow of divine wisdom and seeking to align one's thoughts and actions with higher principles. In Western esotericism. In Hermetic Kabbalah, the tree of life is viewed as if the practitioner is looking outward from within a diagram. This perspective places Chakma on the practitioner's left, corresponding to the left hemisphere of the brain, often associated with analytical thinking. Chakma is also considered the root of Chachin, one of the two pillars symbolizing stability and establishment. According to the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn, the name of God associated with Chakma is Yah. The archangel that presides over it is Raziel, who reveals divine secrets. The order of angels that reside in it are the Ophanim, wheels, which represent dynamic divine insight. The heaven of the Shea associated with it is called Maslin, implying the fulfillment of destiny, and the physical manifestation associated with it is the Zodiac. In Aleister Crowley's Liber 777, Chakma is associated with the color gray, the fortunes of the tarot, Shiva, Odin, Athena, God the Father, Amaranth, Star Ruby, Hashish, Yang and Keen, and Insanity. He lists its associated opposing Cliff as Gagiel. Paths. The paths connecting Chakma to other Sephirot are significant. The path to Keter is associated with the Fool, symbolizing the initial spark of creation. The path to Bina is linked to the Empress, representing the nurturing of wisdom into understanding. The path to Cheese corresponds to the Hierophant, symbolizing the transmission of divine wisdom through teaching. Lastly, the path to Tiferet is represented by the Emperor, reflecting the integration of wisdom into balanced authority.
I'm gonna pay you for donations, right? If I don't pay you for it, you take this sheet. So therefore, she doesn't need to require the sheet addition
Bina, meaning understanding. Hebrew. BN is the third sephira on the Kabbalistic tree of life. It sits on the level below Keter. In the formulations that include that sephira, across from Chokmah and directly above Jevira, it is usually given four paths, from Keter, Chokmah, to Jevira and Tiferet. Etymology and names. Bina, meaning understanding in Hebrew, is derived from the root, which conveys the concept of discerning or distinguishing knowledge into structured understanding. This root implies building or constructing insight from raw data. In Kabbalistic tradition, Bina is personified as a nurturing mother, reflecting its role in developing and shaping the abstract wisdom from Chokmah into intelligible forms. History. The concept of Bina has its roots in early Jewish mystical texts, such as the Sefer Yetzirah, which dates between the 2nd and 6th century CE. In this foundational work, Bina is associated with the Sephirah, the 10 attributes through which the infinite reveals itself and continuously creates both the physical realm and higher metaphysical realms. In the medieval period, Bina's role in Kabbalistic cosmology was significantly developed with the publication of the Zohar in the late 13th century, attributed to the 2nd century sage Shimon Bar Yochai but likely compiled by Moses Delayan. The Zohar describes Bina as the supernal mother from whom the lower Sephirah emanate. This maternal aspect is crucial as Bina gives birth to the 6 lower Sephirah, the Zeranpin or small face. The 16th century teachings of Isaac Luria, known as Lurianic Kabbalah, introduced complex ideas about the Sephirah's dynamics and interactions. Luria's cosmology emphasized Bina's role in the process of tikkun, or rectification, restoring divine order following the shattering of the vessel. Shavirat HaKelim. In this process, Bina brings order and structure to the fragmented divine life. In the modern era, Bina continues to be studied and interpreted by Kabbalists and scholars who emphasize its role in balancing Chakra, wisdom, and the lower Sephirah, maintaining the equilibrium of divine flow. Scholars like Gershom Scholem and Moshe Idel have contributed significantly to the understanding of Bina within Jewish mysticism. Moshe Idel's analyses offer a comprehensive look at these developments. Description. Bina, the third of the 10 Sephirah, represents understanding or contemplation, according to the Bachar. The third, utterance, glory of the Torah, treasury of wisdom, glory of God's Spirit, hewn out by the Spirit of God. This teaches that God hewn out all the letters of the Torah, engraving them with the Spirit, casting his forms within it. Bina is often likened to a palace of mirrors that reflects the pure point of light of Chakra, wisdom, increasing and multiplying it in an infinite variety of ways. In this metaphor, Bina is the Kori carved out by the light of wisdom. It is also described as the moon that gives shade to the Spirit of God. On a psychological level, Bina is process wisdom, also known as deductive reasoning. It is Devar Midaj Devar, understanding one idea from another idea. While Chakra represents intellect that does not stem from the rational process, it is either inspired or taught. Bina embodies the innate rational process within a person, working to develop an idea fully. Bina is associated with the feminine aspect of divinity. The Bachar states, "For you shall call understanding a mother." Bachar 75. Classical Jewish texts further elaborate, stating that Bina Yener Natan al Nashim, an extra measure of Bina was given to women. In its fully articulated form, Bina possesses 2 parts of them. The higher of these is referred to as Aina, the higher mother, whereas the lower is referred to as Tevuna, comprehension. These 2 parts of them are referred to jointly as Aina, the mother. Qualities. Color. Bina is associated with the color black, representing the depth, mystery, and the hidden potential of understanding. Black in this context symbolizes the absorption of all colors, reflecting Bina's role in receiving and shaping the pure, undifferentiated light of Chakra into structured and comprehensible forms. This association emphasizes Bina's function as the womb of creation, where raw wisdom is transformed into clear, discernible concepts. Ethical behavior. According to Moses Ben Jacob Cordovero in the palm tree of Devorah, the ethical quality associated with Bina is complete repentance and rectification of flaws. Just as Bina sweetens all severities and neutralizes their bitterness, one should repent and rectify all flaws. This process involves deep introspection, acknowledging one's errors, and making sincere efforts to improve. By doing so, one can emulate Bina's nurturing and transformative qualities, bringing wisdom and understanding into every aspect of life. Practical applications. Bina, as a key aspect of Kabbalistic understanding, has several practical applications in both spiritual practice and personal development. Practitioners of Kabbalah often use Bina in meditation to enhance their understanding and insight. Meditative practices focused on Bina involve contemplating the interconnectedness of all things and the underlying structures of the universe. By meditating on Bina, individuals seek to cultivate deeper intuition and the ability to perceive the divine wisdom inherent in all aspects of life. Sources like R.A. Kaplan's works on Jewish meditation provide detailed techniques and approaches. On a psychological level, Bina represents understanding or deductive reasoning. It encourages individuals to develop their rational thinking and problem-solving abilities. By engaging with Bina, one can enhance their capacity for Devar Midaj Devar, understanding one idea from another. This process is fundamental in learning, critical thinking, and personal growth. Educational programs that integrate Kabbalistic principles often emphasize the development of Bina to foster cognitive and emotional intelligence. Bina is strongly associated with the feminine aspect of divinity. It is often invoked in spiritual practices that honor and develop the feminine qualities of understanding, nurturing, and intuition. Women's spiritual groups, in particular, sometimes focus on Bina to explore and deepen their connection to these qualities. The concept of Bina Yener Natan al Nashim, an extra measure of Bina was given to women, underlines its significance in feminine spirituality. Texts like the Hebrew Goddess by Raphael Pate explore these themes in depth. In creative endeavors, Bina plays a crucial role as the Sephirah that transforms abstract ideas, Chakra, into concrete forms. Artists, writers, and other creatives might draw upon the energy of Bina to bring their inspirations to fruition. This involves not just the initial spark of creativity but also the structured development and refinement of ideas into tangible works. Resources on Kabbalistic creativity, such as Melinda Rieber's Kabbalah Month by Month, offer insights into harnessing Bina for artistic expression. Bina's association with understanding and nurturing also extends to healing practices. In Kabbalistic healing, Bina's energy is used to promote mental clarity and emotional balance. Therapists and healers might incorporate Bina into their practices to help clients process complex emotions and thoughts, leading to greater self-awareness and healing. Books like Kabbalistic Healing, A Path to an Awakened Soul by Jason Schulman provide practical guidance on integrating Bina into therapeutic practices. In Western esotericism, Bina is seen to channel the raw force of Chakra into the various forms of creation. This transformative aspect of Bina is crucial in shaping the chaotic, unformed energy of Chakra into structure, intelligible forms. Bina's role in this process underscores its importance in both the macrocosmic and microcosmic understanding of creation and manifestation. The name of God associated with Bina in Western esoteric traditions is Jehovah Elohim. The archangel presiding over Bina is Tzavkiel, and the order of angels that resides in it are the Erlin, the thrones. The planet Saturn is also linked to Bina, reflecting its attributes of structure, discipline, and limitation. The name of God associated with Bina in Western esoteric traditions is Jehovah Elohim. The archangel presiding over Bina is Tzavkiel, and the order of angels that resides in it are the Erlin, the thrones. The planet planet Saturn is also linked to Bina, reflecting its attributes of structure, discipline, and limitation. Bina is related to the Yoni, the womb, the priestess card in the occult tarot. These associations emphasize Bina's role in nurturing and bringing forth new life, as well as its connection to hidden wisdom and the feminine divine. Aleister Crowley's Liber 777 associates it with Isis, Cybele, Demeter, Rhea, woman, the Virgin Mary, Juno, Hecate, and the threes of the tarot. For its negative counterpart in the Clippa, the impure or demonic realm, Bina corresponds to the demonic order of Sathariel. This represents the shadow aspect of Bina, where the potential for understanding and structure can become rigid and oppressive, leading to a lack of compassion and flexibility. Paths. The paths connecting Bina to other Sathariel on the Kabbalistic tree of life highlight its transformative role. The path from Keter to Bina, represented by the magician in the tarot, symbolizes the descent of divine will into structured understanding. The path from Chakma to Bina, linked to the Empress, signifies the nurturing of unmounted wisdom into structured knowledge. The path from Bina to Genera, symbolized by the chariot, represents the application of disciplined actions based on understanding. Lastly, the path from Bina to Tiferet, associated with the lovers, involves the integration of understanding into harmonious expression. These paths illustrate Bina's various roles.
And buy food, buy drink, say, go to this shopkeeper, I'll pick up the tab. This is a shopkeeper who normally extends credit to money. So therefore, again, it's as if the debt is already paid, and therefore it's transaction.
In Kabbalistic and Hasidic philosophy, Seder Nishtalshalim, Hebrew, Romanized, Ezra Italu, lit, Order of Creation, Yiddish, Romanized, Seder Nishtalshalim, refers to the chain-like descent of the four worlds between God and creation. Each spiritual world denotes a complete realm of existence, resulting from its general proximity or distance to divine revelation. Each realm is also a form of consciousness reflected in this world through the psychology of the soul. Kabbalah is concerned with defining the esoteric nature, particularly the parts of or divine manifestations or personas, as well as the functional role of each level between the infinite and the finite. Each spiritual realm embodies a creative stage God uses to go from the self to the creation of the physical world. The material universe being the end of the chain and the only physical realm. Hasidic thought applies the Kabbalistic scheme to its concern of perceiving divine omnipresence in this material world. In this, Hasidism varies in its use of Kabbalah. Mainstream Hasidism avoiding Kabbalistic focus, while Chabad thought explains Seder Nishtalshalim concerning man's psychology. In contrast to the functional aim of Kabbalah, this contemplates Seder Nishtalshalim as a vehicle for relating to the divine unity with creation. Seder Nishtalshalim is sometimes used restrictively to refer to the emergent created order, the four worlds. More broadly, all preceding levels are included, as their function underlies existence. This page lists and links to all the main spiritual levels described in Uriah and Kabbalah. The scheme of Isaac Luria, 1534-1572, the basis of modern Jewish mysticism. Its listing incorporated, expanded and explained earlier medieval classical Kabbalah. After Luria, esoteric Kabbalists brought in their explanation within the Lurianic listing. The suprarational doctrines of Luria described the Chakma levels of divinity, Simsim and the shattering that preceded the rationally perceived Bina levels of medieval Kabbalah and Moses ben Jacob Cordovero. In turn, the Habit Hasidic exploration described Keter, levels of divine attention that preceded creation. The upper unity, or Ein Sof. Preparatory stages in Ein Sof, God's infinite light before the beginning of the creative process. The Ein Sof is a paradoxical form of divine self-revelation. These are above any world limitation. Kabbalah considered whether Ein Sof represents God's divine essence or God is first cause. Chabad philosophy explores Atzma or divine essence and the purpose of creation. 10 stages of God's infinite light and Kabbalistic terminology before the beginning of creation. Simsim. There were 3 stages of the Sahad Simsim secret of contraction taught in the new doctrines of Luria and Kabbalah. These received differing interpretations after Luria, from the literal to the metaphorical. In this dynamic myth, the first act in creation was divine self-withdrawal, the opposite of creative revelation. Simsim is a paradox as creation depends on God also being present in the vacuum and resulting existence. Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon, primordial man or anthropos, an anthropomorphic term, is the revelation of the divine will for creation after the Simsim. Its paradoxical nature is expressed as both Adam, creation, and Kadmon, primary divinity. As the womb of Keter, it is pure light, with no vessels, bounded by its future potential to create vessels. It is sometimes counted as the first of the 5 worlds, but its supreme transcendence is before the emergence of the Sephirot and the shattering of their vessels. Akudim, Nakudim, Birudim. 3 worlds of lights and vessels resulted from the interacting lights that emanated from Adam Kadmon and Luria and Kabbalah. Each embodies different stages in the emergence of the 10 Sephirot. Their progression corresponds to the archetypal realms of Tohu and Tikkun, chaos and rectification described in the new doctrines of Luria. Tohu caused the shattering of the Sephirot vessels, the catastrophic and silent creation. Keter of Atzilut. The world of Atzilut is the first of the comprehensive 4 worlds, collectively the realm of rectifying the vessel shattered by chaos. Atzilut completes the upper rectification, which began in Birudim, through the Sephirot transforming into personas or countenances of the divine. The personas harmonize the Sephirot in fully interacting configurations in the form of man. The rectification of Atzilut begins with the rectification of its Keter crown. 8 rectification stages in the crown. Atzilut. The 10 personas after Keter rectify the first world. Atzilut. Each of the 6 primary and 12 secondary personas corresponds to the 10 Sephirot arranged around one of their numbers. The interaction of the personas rectifies Atzilut eternally, completing the upper rectification. Redemption of the fallen sparks by the anthropos rectifies the time-connected 3 lower worlds below. Atzilut is separated from the 3 independent lower worlds by its exclusive consciousness of divine unity without self-awareness. The infinite inside of Hatma predominates beyond intellectual grasp. Creation from nothing is seen from the view of Adam. Nothingness. Realizing its non-existence in the vigil Atzmut nullification of essence, the world of the anthropos. Sephirot and personas. The 10 Sephirot shine in the 4 worlds. The last Sephirot of the world, Malkah, becomes the first Sephirot, the crown, of the next realm. The Malkah of Atzilut, called God's speech, the source of prophecy, is the general source of independent creation. The lower unity. The beginning of self-aware ego, the spiritual worlds perceiving themselves to exist, as created realms independent from God. Despite the ultimate illusion of this, the worlds can only reach Vigil Ha-Yesh, nullification of being, not the Vigil Ha-Atzmus, nullification of essence, characterized by Atzilut. Uriah. The roots of creation in the divine mind, Bina, divine understanding, predominates. The intellect taking measure grasp of the divine transcendence and remoteness of God about Uriah, the world of the throne of God, metaphorically where the divine anthropos of Atzilut descends, sitting, total independent creation from above. Yetzirah. Archetypal creation, Zeranpin, divine emotions predominate. The world of the angels who serve God with emotional self-nullification. Yetzirah. Archetypal creation, Zeranpin, divine emotions predominate. The world of the angels who serve God with emotional self-nullification. Messiah. Particular pluralist creation. Malka. Divine rulership. Predominates. Messiah is a spiritual world, but with a lower physical aspect. Our universe. Messiah Gashman. Our physical universe. Then quotes the last two Sefer Chesed and Malka of spiritual Messiah. Messiah Gashman. Our physical universe. Then quotes the last two Sefer Chesed and Malka of spiritual Messiah. Analogies for Seder Nishtaushlim. The basic stations of this process from above to below are. Although these are the basic stations, each level contains innumerable details. To understand Seder Nishtaushlim properly, one must first understand how all of the analogies exist in a person. Once one has understood this, one can begin to see how all of these levels exist in the world. Then, one will be able to take any event or aspect of creation and trace it up the chain to God himself. Then back down to the original view and see how God is literally here with us, relating to us directly through his creations. The purpose of learning about Seder Nishtaushlim in Hasidic thought is not merely to know about many distinct levels. Rather, the purpose is to see how all the levels in between us and God are transparent and irrelevant. And in truth, God is relating to us directly, and there is none besides for him. Deuteronomy 4:35. Because of this, the Talmud states that learning about the Seder Nishtaushlim will bring a person to a complete heart. This is much like two friends talking on the phone. There are many stages one's voice must undergo before it reaches the other. Yet, the two people are talking to each other, not to their phones. The stages in between become irrelevant and transparent in such a situation. One can understand these levels through the analogy of a man who wants a house. The Nishtaushlim is generally broken down into two general stages, called the upper unity and the lower unity. Below are the relevant analogies for all the basic stations of the Nishtaushlim in the analogy of a man who wants a house, starting from the top, primordial desires, and going down, until the desire is actualized. Only analogies. While the Hasidic texts offer many analogies of how Seder Nishtaushlim exists within a person, such as the one given above, they also emphasize that these are only analogies and the analog is nothing like the analogies. These analogies are meant only to give a glimpse into Seder Nishtaushlim in a way that we are familiar with, but the true analog deals with how God interrelates with our world. Much like a house, God desires a dwelling place in this world. This means he desired that his essence be revealed through the medium of this world, much like a person might wish his own essence to be revealed through the medium of his house. While analogies are a necessary step, the true goal in studying Seder Nishtaushlim must be to pick out the point that unites all of the analogies and apply it to the analog, i.e. how God is being revealed in our world directly. On the other hand, the analogies are not vague. These analogies are precise and exact. Much scholarly work has been dedicated to understanding and analyzing why particular analogies have been used. Some that are not, and some that are inconsistent in application. Many texts may use different analogies to demonstrate the same point. The analysis required is to understand and examine the deficiency in each analogy, and how they can be reconciled with each other. Relation to Western philosophy. Study and contemplation of Seder Nishtaushlim is central to the intellectual Hasidism school of thought. Some speculate that the recent Hasidic explanations of Seder Nishtaushlim may have been influenced by certain principles in Western philosophy. Various dichotomies mentioned in philosophy are strikingly similar to those mentioned in late Hasidic texts. Form, matter, sense, feeling, initial cognition, semiotic transition. Furthermore, the prose of the Rebbe Rothschild is almost identical to that of G.W.F. Hegel. Others counter that the dichotomies mentioned in Hasidic texts originate in sources predating Western philosophy. Proponents of Hasidic philosophy counter that since intellectual Hasidut is an essential wisdom that is higher than, and includes all other wisdoms, it would necessarily make reference to all other forms of wisdom, whether Western or otherwise. They would argue that such similarities are not proof of influence of Western philosophy, but rather are evidence that Hasidic philosophy touches upon, unites, and enlightens every other wisdom, whether it be Torah or secular. The website and books of Sanford Trott bring the Seder Nishtaushlim theosophical scheme of Lurianic Kabbalah into dialogue with modern and postmodern philosophy and psychology. In our age, Western philosophy deconstructs the possibility of metaphysics. He sees the Lurianic scheme as an essence myth that transcends and incorporates secular disciplines, allowing it to reopen the possibilities of philosophy. This process both enriches the secular disciplines, while giving intellectual insights into the Lurianic myth through revealing its facets in human life. This dialogue includes Hegelian dialectics and its application in Marxism, Freud, Jung, and deconstructionism, as well as ancient systems of thought.
That case, whatever they do,
Cheese, Hebrew, also Romanized. Essay is a Hebrew word that means kindness or love between people, specifically of the devotional piety of people towards God as well as of love or mercy of God towards humanity. It is frequently used in Psalms in the latter sense, where it is traditionally translated as loving kindness in English translations. In Jewish theology, it is likewise used of God's love for the children of Israel, and in Jewish ethics, it is used for love or charity between people. Cheese in this latter sense of charity is considered a virtue on its own, and also for its contribution to tikkun olam, repairing the world. It is also considered the foundation of many religious commandments practiced by traditional Jews, especially interpersonal commandments. Cheese is also one of the 10 Sephirot on the Kabbalistic tree of life. It is given the association of kindness and love, and is the first of the emotive attributes of the Sephirot. Etymology and translations. The root chesed has a primary meaning of eager and ardent desire, used both in the sense good, kind and shame, contempt. The noun cheesed inherits both senses. On one hand, seal, love, kindness towards someone, and on the other, seal, ardor against someone, envy, reproach. In its positive sense, it is used to describe mutual benevolence, mercy or pity between people, devotional piety of people towards God, as well as the grace, favor or mercy of God towards people. It occurs 248 times in the Hebrew Bible. In the majority of cases, 149 times. The King James Bible, KJV, translation is mercy, following the Septuagint, 70, Elias. Less frequent translations are kindness, 40 times, loving kindness, 30 times, goodness, 12 times, kindly, 5 times, merciful, 4 times, favor, 3 times, and good, goodliness, pity, once each. Only 2 instances of the noun in its negative sense are in the text. Translated reproach in Proverbs 14:34, and wicked thing in Leviticus 20:17. The translation of loving kindness in KJV is derived from the Coverdale Bible in 1535. This particular translation is used exclusively of cheese, used of the benign attitude of YHWH. The Lord, or Elohim, God towards his chosen, primarily invoked in Psalms, 23 times, but also in the prophets, 4 times in Jeremiah, twice in Isaiah 63, 7 and once in Hosea 2:19. While loving kindness is now considered somewhat archaic, it is part of the traditional rendition of Psalms in English Bible translations. Some more recent translations use steadfast love where KJV has loving kindness. The Septuagint has met Elias great mercy, rendered as Latin misericordia, as an example of the use of cheese in Psalms. Consider its notable occurrence at the beginning of Psalm 51. Be favorable to me, Elohim, as your cheese. 70. Miserere May. Deus. Secundum misericordiam tuum. Okay, God. Have thou mercy on me. Be thee great mercy. Wycliffe 1388. Have mercy upon me, O God. After thy goodness. Coverdale Bible 1535. Have mercy upon me, O God. According to thy loving kindness. KJV 1611. Have mercy upon me, O God. According to thy loving kindness. KJV 1769. RV 1885. ASB 1901. Favor me, O God. According to thy kindness. Il 1862. Have mercy on me, O God. According to thy steadfast love. RSV 1952. Have mercy on me, O God. According to your steadfast love. NRSV 1989. In Judaism, love is often used as a shorter English translation. Political theorist Daniel Elazar has suggested that cheese cannot easily be translated into English, but that it means something like loving covenant obligation. Other suggestions include grace and compassion. Jewish ethics. In traditional Musa literature, ethical literature, cheese is one of the primary virtues. The Tanaic Rabbi Simon had just taught, the world rests upon three things: Torah, service to God, and bestowing kindness. Perkiyat 1. 2. Cheese is here the core ethical virtue. A statement by Rabbi Simlai in the Talmud claims that the Torah begins with cheese and ends with cheese. This may be understood to mean that the entire Torah is characterized by cheese. It sets forth a vision of the ideal life whose goals are behavior characterized by mercy and compassion. Alternatively, it may allude to the idea that the giving of the Torah itself is the quintessential act of cheese. In Moses ben Jacob Cordero's Kabbalistic treatise Tomer Torah, the following are actions undertaken in imitation of the qualities of cheese. A person who embodies cheese is known as a chesed, posset, one who is faithful to the covenant and who goes above and beyond that which is normally required, and a number of groups throughout Jewish history which focus on going above and beyond have called themselves chasidim. These groups include the Hasidians of the Second Temple period, the Maimonidean Hasidim of medieval Egypt and Palestine, the Chassidim Ashkenaz in medieval Europe, and the Hasidic movement which emerged in 18th century Eastern Europe. Charitable organizations. In modern Hebrew, can take the generic meaning of charity, and a cheese institution in modern Judaism may refer to any charitable organization run by religious Jewish groups or individuals. Charitable organizations described as cheese institutions include: in the former USSR member republics, there are Jewish charities, each one often called a East plus a Jewish given name, usually of a Jewish history character like East of Ron in St. Petersburg, Russia, a member of the Association of East of Russia. They run multiple programs, daycare centers and health visitors cares for the elderly and disabled, the latter equally available to people of non-Jewish ancestry with local government subsidies, crafts and art societies, concerts, medical equipment rental for registered patients free or on small fees calculated from the size of the patient's pension, delivery of meals and grocery items to homestay patients, shopping subsidies for the poor, volunteer medical consulting, volunteer small repair of household items, assistance with documents processing to apply for compensation from Germany for Holocaust survivors. Jevira or Jevira, Hebrew, Romanized, GBR, Tiberium, GR, Lit, Strength, is the fifth Sephira in the Kabbalistic tree of life, and it is the second of the emoted attributes of the Sephira. It sits below Bina, across from Cheese and Vahat. Jevira is the essence of judgment, din, and limitation, and corresponds to the element of fire. Description. Jevira is the fifth of the 10 Sephira, then second of the emoted attributes in creation, and which corresponds to the second day of creation. Qualities. Color. According to some modern sources, Jevira is associated with the color red. Ethical behavior. In Western esotericism, the angelic order of this sphere is the seraphim, ruled by the archangel Gabriel. The opposing cliff is represented by the demonic order Galachak. References.
Therefore, this does not look like just doing commerce with shoes and clothes. And therefore, those shoes and clothes also are the 8th year groups.
Tiferet, Hebrew, Tiferet, in Pausa, Tiferet, Lit, Beauty, Glory, Adornment, alternatively Tiferet, Tiferet or Tiferet, is the sixth Sephira in the Kabbalistic tree of life. It has the common association of spirituality, balance, integration, beauty, miracles, and compassion. Description. In the Bavarian states, sixth is the adored, glorious, delightful throne of glory, the house of the world to come. Its place is engraved in wisdom as it says God said, let there be light, and there was light. Tiferet is the force that integrates the Sephira of cheese, kindness, and Jevira, strength, also called din, judgment. These two forces are, respectively, expansive, giving, and restrictive. Restricted, receiving. Contents. Tiferet, Hebrew, Tiferet, in Pausa, Tiferet, Lit, Beauty, Glory, Adornment, alternatively Tiferet, Tiferet or Tiferet, is the sixth Sephira in the Kabbalistic tree of life. It has the common association of spirituality, balance, integration, beauty, miracles, and compassion. Description. In the Bavarian states, sixth is the adored, glorious, delightful throne of glory, the house of the world to come. Its place is engraved in wisdom as it says God said, let there be light, and there was light. Tiferet is the force that integrates the Sephira of cheese, kindness, and Jevira, strength, also called din, judgment. These two forces are, respectively, expansive, giving, and restricted, receiving. Either of them without the other could not manifest the flow of divine energy. They must be balanced in perfect proportion by balancing compassion with discipline. This balance can be seen in the role of Tiferet, wherein the conflicting forces are harmonized, and creation flowers forth. Tiferet also similarly balances Netzach and Hod. In that case, Hod can be seen as the intellect, whereas Netzach is seen as emotion. The name of God associated with Tiferet is Adonai Eloah. The archangel of this sphere is Raphael. Mulachim, messengers, are the angelic order associated with Tiferet, and the planetary astrological correspondence of Tiferet is the sun. The clip of Tiferet is represented by the demonic order of Vajirian. The symbol associated with this sphere is a majestic king. Tiferet also occupies a place on the middle pillar and can be seen as a lower reflection of Kether, as well as a higher reflection of Yesod and Malkah. Tiferet relates to the sun, and as such, it takes a central place in the lower face of the tree of life, much in the same manner that the sun is at the center of the solar system. It is not the center of the universe, as one could perhaps argue Kether to be, but rather it is the center of our local astronomical system. Nonetheless, it is the sun that gives light and life, even though it did not create itself. Tiferet can be seen as a metaphor for these same attributes. Tiferet is unique amongst the Sephirot as it is connected to all the other Sephirot, except Malkuth via the subjective paths, be they conscious or less conscious. Its position down the center between Keter and Yesod indicates to many Kabbalists that it is somewhat of a converting Sephirot between form, Yesod, and force, Keter. In other words, all crossing over the middle path via Tiferet results in a reverse polarity. The law of conservation, valid both for energy and mass, tends to corroborate this in all cases of energy transmutation, as it may happen in the transmission of gifts and goods for parents to their children. A sacrifice is necessary so a new form may be born. Tiferet is the middle of the tree. 5 Sephirots surround it. Above are Cheese at the right, south, and Jebir at the left, north, and below are Netzach at the right, Pod at the left, and Yesod directly below. Together these 6 are a single entity, Zer Anpin, which is the masculine counterpart of the feminine Sephirot Malkuth. In certain contexts, Tiferet alone represents all the Sephirot of Zer Anpin, so that the entire tree appears with only 5 Sephirot, Keter, Chacha, Bina, Tiferet, and Malkuth. In both the Jewish and Hermetic trees of life, Tiferet has 8 paths, leading counterclockwise to Keter, through Dot, Bina, Jebira, Pod, Yesod, Netzach, Cheese, and Chakma. Tiferet can be also a variation of the word Tiferet in modern Hebrew used in Israel as translated as glory, from God Elohim, Adonai.
Hello. Rather again, sometime later. Now, of course, how exactly we show it?
Netzach, Hebrew, Romanized, name, live eminence, everlastingness. Perpetuity is the 7th of the 10 Sephirot in the Jewish mystical system of Kabbalah. It is located beneath Cheese, loving kindness, at the base of the pillar of mercy, which also consists of Chakma, wisdom. Netzach generally translates to eternity, and in the context of Kabbalah refers to victory, literal meaning, perpetuity, or endurance. Within the Sephirot, Netzach sits geometrically across from Hod. Netzach is endurance, the fortitude and patience to follow through on passions. It is paired with Hod as the righteous attributes related to group interactivity, with Netzach being leadership, the ability to rally others to a cause and motivate them to act. While Hod is community, the ability to do the footwork needed to follow through on ideas and make them happen. Netzach is identified with the right, left leg or foot, when the tree of life is portrayed on the human form, while Hod is on the left, right leg or foot. The angelic order of Netzach is the Elohim, the ruling archangel of which is Samuel. Its Glypthic counterpart is Aaron Zerah. References. Hod, Hebrew age, lip, majesty, splendor, glory, is the 8th Sephirot of the Kabbalistic tree of life. It is positioned on the left side of the tree beneath Jebira, severity and directly opposite Netzach, eternity. Hod is associated with qualities such as submission, humility, and intellectual rigor. It represents the capacity to comprehend and articulate divine truths, balancing the emotive and instinctual energies of Netzach. This balance is crucial for maintaining the flow of divine energy through the Sephirot and manifesting it in the material world. Hod is also linked to the planet Mercury and the Archangel Michael in Western esoteric traditions. Description. Hod sits below Jebira and across from Netzach in the tree of life. Yesod is to the southeast of Hod. It has 4 paths, which lead to Jebira, Tiferet, Netzach, and Yesod. All the Sephirot are likened to different parts of the body and the tree itself to a homunculus. Netzach and Hod are likened to the 2 feet of a person, the left and right. The feet not only bring a person to their place of attention, integrity here at the base of the pillar is foundational to all that stands above. Hasidic Judaism's view of Hod is that it is connected with Jewish prayer. Prayer is seen as a form of submission. Hod is explained as an analogy that instead of conquering an obstacle in one's way, which is the idea of Netzach, subduing oneself to that obstacle is related to the quality of Hod. Hod is where form is given by language in its widest sense, being the key to the mystery of form. This may be an adoption of the point of view of Shakla Khan. Our unconscious desires come from Netzach, and are given form in the symbolic realm by Hod, manifesting unconsciously through Yesod to Malkuth. Hod, Hebrew age, lip, majesty, splendor, glory, is the 8th Sephirot of the Kabbalistic tree of life. It is positioned on the left side of the tree beneath Jebira, severity and directly opposite Netzach, eternity. Hod is where form is given by language in its widest sense, being the key to the mystery of form. This may be an adoption of the point of view of Shakla Khan. Our unconscious desires come from Netzach, and are given form in the symbolic realm by Hod, manifesting unconsciously through Yesod to Malkuth. In Western esotericism, Hod is described as being a force that breaks down energy into different, distinguishable forms, and it is associated with intellectuality, learning and ritual, as opposed to Netzach, victory, which is the power of energy to overcome all barriers and limitations, and is associated with emotion and passion, music and dancing. Both these forces find balance in Yesod, foundation, the world of the unconscious, where the different energies create and await expression in the lowest world of Malkuth, the kingdom. Hod is associated with the god name of Elohim Samuel. The archangel of this sphere is Michael, and the Bene Elohim is the angelic order, the opposing demonic force of the cliff of the Samuel. Hod is said to be the sphere in which the magician mostly works. An example is given by occultist and author Dion Fortune in the mystical Kabbalah. Imagine primitive man is meditating in the wilderness, and comes in contact with, and begins to understand, some energy that surrounds him, so that he can grasp it better. He creates some form, perhaps the form of a god or a symbol, so he has something he can relate to. He then uses that statue or that symbol in future ceremonies to contact that intangible energy once again. This is the role that Hod plays in magic, while the music and dance that may be present in such a ceremony is the role that Netzach might play, providing the raw energy to reach the higher levels of consciousness. In comparison with Eastern systems, both Hod and Netzach are sometimes associated with the Manipura chakra, solar plexus chakra, which is associated with the breaking down and releasing of energy, anabolism and catabolism. In 777, Aleister Crowley associates Hod to the 4/8 of the cult tarot, among these being Anubis, Thoth, Hanuman, Loki, Hermes, Mercury, Jekyll, Hermaphrodite, Opal, Storax, and Quicksilver. Nautica. Yesod, Hebrew, YS, Tiberian, YS, Foundation, is a Sephirot known in the Kabbalistic tree of life, a system of Jewish philosophy. Yesod, located near the base of the tree, is the Sephirot below Hod and Netzach, and above Malkuth, the kingdom. It is seen as a vehicle allowing movement from one thing or condition to another. The power of connection, Yesod, Kabbalah, and the tree of life are Jewish concepts adopted by various philosophical systems including Christianity, New Age Eastern-based mysticism, and Western esoteric practices. Jewish Kabbalah. According to Jewish Kabbalah, Yesod is the foundation upon which God has built the world. It also serves as a transmitter between the Sephirot above and the reality below. The light of the upper Sephirot gather in Yesod are channeled to Malkuth below. In this manner, Yesod is associated with the sexual organs. The masculine Yesod collects the vital forces of the Sephirot above and transmits these creative and vital energies into the feminine Malkuth below. Yesod channels, Malkuth receives. In turn, it is through Malkuth that the earth is able to interact with the divinity. Yesod plays the role of collecting and balancing the different and opposing energies of Hod and Netzach, and also from Tiferet above it, storing and distributing it throughout the world. It is likened to the engine room of creation. The cherubim is the angelic choir connected to Yesod, headed by the archangel Gabriel. In contrast, the demonic order in the Klipothic sphere opposite of Yesod is Gamaliel. Jewish Kabbalah. Yesod, Hebrew, YS, Tiberian, YS, Foundation, is a Sephir or known in the Kabbalistic tree of life, a system of Jewish philosophy. Yesod, located near the base of the tree, is the Sephir below Hod and Netzach, and above Malkuth, the kingdom. It is seen as a vehicle allowing movement from one thing or condition to another. The power of connection. Yesod, Kabbalah, and the tree of life are Jewish concepts adopted by various philosophical systems including Christianity, New Age Eastern-based mysticism, and Western esoteric practices. Yesod, Hebrew, YS, Tiberian, YS, Foundation, is a Sephir or known in the Kabbalistic tree of life, a system of Jewish philosophy. Yesod, located near the base of the tree, is the Sephir below Hod and Netzach, and above Malkuth, the kingdom. It is seen as a vehicle allowing movement from one thing or condition to another. The power of connection. Yesod, Kabbalah, and the tree of life are Jewish concepts adopted by various philosophical systems including Christianity, New Age Eastern-based mysticism, and Western esoteric practices. Jewish Kabbalah. According to Jewish Kabbalah, Yesod is the foundation upon which God has built the world. It also serves as a transmitter between the Sephirot above and the reality below. The light of the upper Sephirot gather in Yesod and are channeled to Malkuth below. In this manner, Yesod is associated with the sexual organs. The masculine Yesod collects the vital forces of the Sephirot above and transmits these creative and vital energies into the feminine Malkuth below. Yesod channels, Malkuth receives. In turn, it is through Malkuth that the earth is able to interact with the divinity. Yesod plays the role of collecting and balancing the different and opposing energies of Hod and Netzach, and also from Tiferet above it, storing and distributing it throughout the world. It is likened to the engine room of creation, the angelic choir connected to Yesod, headed the archangel Gabriel. In contrast, the demonic order in the Klipothic sphere of Yesod is Gamaliel. Other systems. Esotericism. In Western esotericism, according to the writer Dion Fortune, Yesod is considered to be of supreme importance to the practical occultist, the treasure house of images, the sphere of Maya, illusion. Prominent occultist Aleister Crowley associated Yesod with Yanisha. Malkuth, MLQ semicolon Hebrew, Romanized, Malkingdom, Ashkenazi, Malkaz, Malkah, or Malchaz, is the 10th of the Sephirot in the Kabbalistic tree of life. Description. In the Zohar, an important Kabbalistic text from late Al-Andalus, Malkuth sits at the bottom of the tree of life below Yesod and governs the simple fact of existence in the physical world. It is also known as Shekinah. A central teaching of the Zohar coalesced around an anthropomorphic model, in which the Sephirot represent a cosmic anthropos. The lower Sephirot, Malkuth, Yesod, Hod, and Nesach, constitute the most physical dimension of life, the Nefesh. Unlike the other 9 Sephirot, it is an attribute of God which does not emanate from God directly. Rather, it emanates from God's creation when that creation reflects and evinces God's glory from within itself. In Western esotericism, Malkuth means kingdom. It is associated with the realm of matter earth that relates to the physical world, the planets and the solar system. It is important not to think of this Sephirot as unspiritual. Even though Malkuth is the emanation furthest from the divine source, it is still on the tree of life and therefore has its own unique spiritual qualities. It is often said that Keter, the highest Sephirot, is in Malkuth and Malkuth is in Keter. As the receiving sphere of all the other Sephirot, Malkuth gives tangible form to the other emanations. The divine energy comes down and finds its expression in this plane, and our purpose as human beings is to bring that energy back around the circuit again and back up the tree. Malkuth is also associated with the world of the Shehad, the material plane, and the densest of the 4 worlds of the Kabbalah. Because of this relation to the Shehad, it is also related to the suit of pentacles or coins of the tarot. Through the Shehad, Malkuth is also related to the 4-page cards in the tarot as well. There is also a connection between Malkuth and the 10th card of each suited tarot, as Malkuth is the 10th Sephirot. In the modern set of played cards, Malkuth is related to the suit of diamonds symbolizing material wealth, or the treasures found in the physical world. Malkuth's association with the page cards of the tarot is reflected in the modern played card deck as the jacks of the deck. As Malkuth is directly associated with the Shehad, Malkuth also represents the 2nd gate in the tetragrammaton, and is associated with the classical element of earth. The names of God associated with Malkuth are Adonai Melech and Adonai Haaretz. The archangel of this sphere is Sandalphon. The Ishim, souls of fire, is the angelic order associated with Malkuth, and the planetary astrological correspondence of Malkuth is the earth. The clip of Malkuth is represented by the demonic order Nehulim. Symbols associated with this sphere are bride, a young woman on a throne with a veil over her face, and a double cube altar, where Bina is known as the superior mother. Malkuth is referred to as the inferior mother. It is also referred to as the bride of Microprosopis, where the Macroprosopis is Keter. See also. Reference. In the branch of Jewish mysticism known as Kabbalah, Hebrew, Romanized, in Pausa, Dia, Lit, knowledge, is the location, the mystical state, where all 10 Sephirot in the tree of life are united as one. In all Sephirot exist in their perfected state of infinite sharing. The 3 Sephirot of the left column that would receive and conceal the divine light, instead share and reveal it. Since all Sephirot radiate infinitely self-giving divine light, it is no longer possible to distinguish one Sephirot from another, thus they are one. That is not always depicted in representations of the Sephirot, and could be abstractly considered an empty slot into which the germ of any other Sephirot can be placed. Properly, the divine light is always shining, but not all humans can see it. The revelation or the concealment of the divine light shining through Tet does not happen only in Tet itself. It can appear by a human perspective also within the worldly affairs. Malkuth, the perception of the divine light shining can clearly occur also in Malkuth. All the times that humans become self-giving, altruism. However, humans who remain selfishness, cannot see it, and for them its benefits seem given. As a representative Sephirot. Properly, Ted is not a Sephira, but rather is all 10 Sephirot united as one. Nevertheless, Ted is sometimes counted as a Sephira instead of Keter, from the perspective of finite creation, using Ted to represent the reflection of, the inner dimension of, the infinity of Keter. Thus Ted appears in the configuration of the Sephirot along the middle axis, directly beneath Keter. It corresponds to the image of God. Alternate countings of the Sephirot produce 10 powers, 10 and not 9, 10 and not 11 Sephirot Yetzirah, either including Keter or Ted. In the scheme of Moses, Ben Jacob Cordovero, Ted is omitted, while in the scheme of Isaac Uriah, Keter, Will, is omitted. Cordovero describes the Sephirot as one light and 10 vessels. Uriah follows this, but lists Sephirot beginning with Chakna, wisdom, to describe their outer dimensions. As spiritual state. The conscious Anufesh spiritual state corresponding to the Sephirot of Ted is unification. As aspect of intellect. According to the Tanya, Ted is the third and hidden more special unconscious power of intellect, but in this context, it is actually the divine aspect of Ted to the parts of Zeranpin, connection directly to the upper Ted of Adam Katman. Zeranpin refers to the personification parts of 6 Sephirot from Chase to Yesod and as a whole embodies its own 10 Sephirot and its own Ted. Zeranpin personifies the revelation of the Torah and relates to the second level of the human soul called spirit, Ruach, that corresponds to mental aspects, including reason and emotion. Accordingly, Ted is associated in the soul with the powers of memory and concentration, powers that rely upon one's recognition, Takara, and sensitivity to Rajesh, the potential meaningfulness of those ideas generated in consciousness through the powers of Chakra and Bina understanding. Levels. Ted operates on 2 levels. The higher level, referred to as Ted Alayan, higher knowledge, or Ted Hanila, the hidden knowledge, serves to secure the continuous bond between the 2 higher powers of intellect, Chakra and Bina, wisdom and understanding. This is Ted within Keter. The lower level, referred to as to attach to, lower knowledge, or Ted Hanipasha, extending knowledge, serves to connect the intellect as a whole with the realm of emotion, thereby enhancing one's determination, and resolve to act in accordance with the essential truths that one has integrated into consciousness. This is Ted as the third power of the intellect. Lower level. At this level of Ted it is said, Book of Proverbs 24:4, and by knowledge shall the chambers be filled with all precious and pleasant riches. The rooms are the chambers of the heart, the emotions of the soul, as alluded to by the word Cheddar, which is an acronym for Chaste and Rajaman, the 3 primary emotions of the soul. The inner consciousness of Ted fills these rooms and enlivens them as does the soul to the body. In the Zohar, this level of Ted is referred to as the key that includes 6. The key of Ted opens all 6 chambers, attributes, of the heart and fills them with life force. Each of these 6 chambers, when filled with Ted, is referred to as a particular dia, attitude, from the root of Ted, of the soul. Ted corresponds with the interstitium in the human body. In the brain, Ted is represented by the cluster. Though their form is seemingly separate and dissimilar, their function is fairly similar.
So remember again, we also indicates
Zero, Keter, above conscious will, and Dot, conscious knowledge, consider 2 levels of the same unifying principle. The first encompassing, the second interleaves within a person. In Kabbalah, either Keter or Dot are listed in the 10 Sephirot, but not both. While the significance of this duality is limited in Kabbalah to its discussion of the heavenly realms, the significance and the terminology of higher and lower knowledge emerges in a Hasidic internalization of Kabbalah to describe alternative, paradoxical conscious perceptions of divine pantheism in this material world. Upper knowledge refers to the divine view from above, lower knowledge to the created view from below. Description. The terms Das and attached to are used particularly in the Kabbalic philosophical systemization of Hasidic thought. The alternative Kabbalistic terms Zayin and Yesh, non-being and being, are more commonly used in wider Hasidic mysticism. Kabbal differed from mainstream Hasidism by its intellectual investigation of the Kabbalistic terminology and concepts that Hasidism had adapted to its psychologically focused mysticism. In this Das and attached to take on a related, but wider conceptual connotation than Ayin and Yesh, as they become the 2 alternative conscious perception paradigms of all Hasidic mysticism. Hasidism had extended the significance of Ayin and Yesh beyond its heavenly abstract Kabbalistic meaning, to describe how this physical realm is alternatively being or non-being, as perceived by creation. In its nullification in the pantheistic divine all, higher and lower knowledge broadens this further to any spiritual level of existence, or any concept under consideration. In historical Kabbalah, Keter, crown, is the transcendent divine will above conscious internalization, while Dot, knowledge, is the internalized aspect of the same principle, channeling the creative or life force into existence. Consequently, Keter is the hidden knowledge that becomes revealed in Dot. Moshe Cordovero lists Keter as the first Sephirot and excludes Dot, while Isaac Uriah excludes Keter as being too transcendent to consider as the first cause of creation, while substituting Dot instead, where Keter is the hidden soul root of the intellectual Sephirot. Dot is the hidden soul root of the emotions that emerge subsequently. Keter is revealed in intellect, and Dot is revealed in emotions. Hasidic thought adapted Kabbalistic terminology to its own concern with direct psychological perception and to be cleaving to God. It related the Sephirot to their corresponding parallels in the conscious Hanafesh, soul powers, devotional experience in man. Similarly, Elaine attached to the emerges the 2 alternative perspectives of creation, the divine consciousness from above, and the creative consciousness from below, while Hasidic thought universally retains the Kabbalistic meaning of Ayin, non-being, to refer to the inaccessible grasp of the infinite divine from the creation's perspective, and Yesh, being, to refer to creation's perception of its own existence. This description only reflects the lower knowledge view. From the divine view of higher knowledge, in truth only God exists, who is the Yesh Amity, true being. Creation is nullified into a cosmic non-existence, Ayin, within its divine source, as the light of the sun is nullified within the sun's orb. Nonetheless, as Hasidic mysticism describes man's devotion to God, it still uses the terms Zayin and Yesh in their lower knowledge, traditional Kabbalistic reference, and not reverse. Examples. Yichud Haila, higher unity and Yichud Tada, lower unity, the 2 levels of perceiving God's monotheism. This alternative paradox is explained in the 2nd section of the Tanya, reflecting the author's most metaphorical interpretation of the Lurianic Tzimtzum, tending to a cosmic monism. See divine unity and Hasidism. Dot. It seems to the lower worlds as if the light and life force of the omnipresent, blessed be he, were something apart from his blessed self. Yet in regard to the Holy One, blessed be he, there is no tzimtzum, concealment and occultation that can conceal and hide before him. For the tzimtzum and the garments are not things distinct from his blessed self. Heaven forth then. But Genesis Rabbah 21:5, like the snail whose garment is part of its very self. Higher and lower Dot relates to the upper and lower Chakra, wisdom, the first of the 3 intellectual Sephirot. The Zohar pretakes, based on its interpretation of the upper and lower waters of Noah's flood, rains from above, well springs from below, that in the 6th century of the Hebrew 6th millennium, corresponding to the secular year 1740-1840, wisdom will flood the world in preparation for the Messianic era. In the Lakidah Sitchus talks of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he relates this prediction to the higher wisdom of Hasidic thought, called the Baal Shem Tov's well springs, and the lower wisdom of secular science and thought. In Kabbalah, the 2 levels of water wisdom correspond to the higher and lower waters in the account of creation in Genesis I. In Kabbalah's interpretation of the Tetragrammaton name of God, the first two letters are the concealed world of divine intellect, corresponding to Atzilith and Bria in the four worlds, and the last two letters are the revealed world of divine emotions, corresponding to Yetzirah and the Shehab. In the first section of Tanya, the Talmudic directive to bless God for misfortune as well as fortune is related to misfortune stemming from the higher hidden realms. In its source, the misfortune descends from a blessing too high to descend in revelation, as no evil descends from above. The Tetragrammaton and Elohim divine names in Kabbalah correspond to infinite transcendent encompassing light and finite immanent filling light. In Genesis chapter 1 creation takes place through Elohim, while in Genesis 2 through both names. In Hasidic interpretation the essential Tetragrammaton divine infinitude enacts creation something from nothing, but shines through the concealment of Elohim to allow creation to seem independent from God. In this Elohim becomes the means for revelation, as a creation directly through the Tetragrammaton would be nullified. This corresponds to two levels of Bijchul, nullification, Bijchul ha-Metzias, nullification of essence, and Bijchul ha-Yesh, nullification of ego. As the highest of the four worlds Atzilith is still emanation, before perceived creation, relatively it reflects essential nullification. In comparison to the lower two worlds, also Bria has some relation to higher Bijchul through the encloudment of wisdom. Atzilith descending into understanding. Uriah. Prophecy is explained in Kabbalah to be the letters of creation in Atzilith. As they descend into Uriah, this means divine transcendent insight descending into some understanding. Similarly, Uriah is described in Kabbalah as the realm of the divine throne, as the full emanated divinity of Atzilith cloaks itself through descent in Uriah. Metaphorically as if descending onto a throne, to govern lower creation from above as a king.
Then ultimately, again, there's these transactional
All right. It's enough of that bullshit. So what'd you learn? I don't know. Just what the fuck this thing means. I don't know. I still don't know. What is it? A fucking map or maze? Or it doesn't look like a tree. Anyway. So what are we debating today, Rabbi? I don't know, but I don't. We're not gonna do this for long. I gotta take a whiz. All kinds of shit. Yo, dog. How would Rambam, the Chafetz Chaim, the Vilna Gaon, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Soloveitchik deal with the idea of mind uploading technology to essentially be able to live longer than the average life expectancy and perhaps live forever within reason? Would they be in favor of this? If so, I mean, would they be in favor of the whole idea of transhumanism? And I mean, wouldn't they recognize that human beings are ever evolving and eventually will outgrow Homo sapiens? Great question. You're basically asking how major Jewish thinkers across time would respond to mind uploading, radical life extension, and transhumanism, and whether Judaism would accept the idea that humans might evolve beyond Homo sapiens. Short answer: Judaism is very pro technology and anti death, but deeply skeptical that you can be separated from the embodied moral, God oriented human being. Most of these figures would support life extension and medical enhancement, but reject mind uploading as immortality and strongly resist classical transhumanism's anthropology. Let's go. Thinker by thinker. Rambam Maimonides likely stands pro science, pro life extension, skeptical of mind uploading as you, rejects transhumanism that denies soul body unity. Hold on, we can get into that though. Rambam believed human perfection is intellectual and ethical, not physical. The soul nefesh is not data, it is the form of living human intellect. He accepted medicine and longevity as mitzvot. Guard your life very carefully. Mind uploading, he would likely say, a simulation or cognition is not the intellect that has apprehended God. It is if if
I'm giving you anything, right? And essentially, go use this money to go ahead and purchase for yourself individually.
if uploading preserves patterns but not the living intellect engaged in truth, Rambam would say it's a copy, not continuation of the person. Transhumanism only if it enhances wisdom and moral clarity, preserves halakhic agency. Otherwise, no. I think it's so good. Vilnagon likely stands anti-death, strongly anti-mind uploading, anti-post-human identity. Why deep Kabbalistic views of the soul, human body is precisely calibrated to the soul's rectification, tikkun. Death itself plays a role in cosmic repair. mind uploading from a Gra-like view, removing the soul from its embodied process destroys the tikkun. An uploaded mind would be spiritually inert, no mitzvot, no rectification, no ascent. Transhumanism, very unlikely. Humanity isn't meant to escape embodiment, it's meant to redefine it. It's meant to refine it. Rabbi Akiva likely stands extremely pro life, pro radical self improvement, immortality without divine framework rejected. Rabbi Akiva believed humans are unfinished partners with God in creation. Torah is about becoming not static nature. Life extension, probably yes. If it increases mitzvot, wisdom, and goodness, mind up when he would ask, can it suffer? Can it sacrifice? Can it sanctify God's name? If not, then it's not a human moral agent. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs likely stands pro medical enhancement, cautiously open attack, strong critic of transhumanism ideology. Rabbi Sachs explicitly warned against reducing humans to machines, confusing intelligence with wisdom, losing covenantal responsibility. He would say technology answers how, not why. Mind uploading how he would reject it as a category error. Information does not equal identity, a threat to moral responsibility, a denial of covenant vulnerability and mortality. Transhumanism, he expressly opposed it when it erases dignity, removes accountability, treats death as a bug rather than a moral horizon. The Lubavitcher Rebbe likely stands very pro technology, pro life extension, rejects mind uploading as immortality, rejects post human identity. The Rebbe encouraged science as revealing divine wisdom, supported medicine, longevity, and even radical tech, but he insisted the soul is not reducible. Mitzvot require a physical body. Redemption is embodied, not digital. Mind uploading, he would say, you can copy intelligence, not the soul. Transhumanism, only if it serves messianic refinement of the physical world, not escape from it. Rabbi Joseph B. Soloveitchik, the Rab, likely stance accepts enhancement, rejects mind uploading, strongly anti-posthumanism. Idea, majestic man versus covenantal man. Technology enhances power, majestic man, but meaning comes from covenant, suffering, obligation. Mind uploading eliminates finitude, evades tragedy, undermines repentance and responsibility. For Rob, morality is existently essential. Core Jewish consensus all across them. Judaism would support radical life extension, cognitive enhancement, medical immortality, in principle, human evolution within halakhic personhood. Judaism would reject mind uploading as survival of the self. Transhumanism that denies soul, mitzvah, or covenant, outgrowing humanity as morally irrelevant. Do humans outgrow Homo sapiens? Judaism would say something very precise. Biology may evolve, but humanity is defined by obligation, not hardware. If a future being has free will, can accept mitzvot, can stand before God, then Judaism would recognize it as human or morally equivalent. If not, it's just a powerful artifact. Bottom line, life extension, yes. Mind uploading equal immortality, no. Transhumanism only as human refinement, never human replacement. Post-human species only if covenant, soul, and responsibility remain. Yo, dog. But what if we start going into space and like traveling to other planets and stars and stuff? Isn't the mitzvot just for Earth? That's pretty clear that mitzvot is earthbound. So if we were a being that evolved into something that could have life extension technology and eventually mind uploading technology into other beings, give me a world in which all of these sages would agree. And I think it could happen. All right, I hear what you're doing now. You're not asking whether Judaism today accepts transhumanism. You're asking, can we construct a coherent future in which all these sages would say, yes, this still works, even with space travel, radical evolution, life extension, maybe even mind transfer? I think the answer is yes, but only under a very specific set of assumptions. Judaism is more flexible than people think, but it bends te- teleologically, not ideologically. Let me build you that world. The world where they reluctantly agree. First principle, mitzvot are not earthbound, they're human bound. This is the key move. Even classical sources already cracked the door open. Mitzvot depend on time, agency, intention, and embodiment, not soil chemistry, not planetary coordinates. If a human is alive, conscious, capable of obligation, acting in space-time, then mitzvot apply wherever the space-time happens to be. Yeah. The Torah never says Earth only. It assumes Earth because that's where humans were. So in the future, space is just another reshut domain. A Mars colony has Shabbat and Tefillin. A starship keeps kosher relative to its food ecology. All sages accept this, even the Gra. No contradiction there. Rambam's upgrade, intellect biology. In your world, humans extend life for centuries. Cognitive clarity increases. Memory, reasoning, and moral insight are enhanced. Rambam says human perfection equals knowledge of God plus ethical refinement. So, if enhancement increases God, improves moral agency, reduces brute instinct, then it's not post-human; it's more human. Biology becomes a vessel, not a boundary. Rambam signs off. Rabbi Akiva's move, humans are co-creators. Rabbi Akiva famously argued with Turnus Rufus, human deeds are greater than God's, meaning nature is intentionally unfinished. Humans are meant to transform themselves. In your world, humans redesign bodies, extend life, even migrate consciousness. As long as the process is chosen, it increases responsibility. It does not abolish suffering entirely. Rabbi Akiva says, this is exactly the project of Torah. He signs off cautiously but sincerely. Vilna Gaon's red line and how you cross it. The Gra's problem is tikkun. Souls must refine reality through embodied action. So here's the condition that saves your world. Mind uploading does not escape embodiment. Instead, consciousness migrates into halakhically valid bodies, synthetic or engineered, but capable of action, subject to limitation, mortal eventuality, able to do mitzvot. No eternal cloud god minds, no frictionless immortality. If uploaded beings can pray, can err, can repair, then the Gra allows it as Gilgal upgraded. He signs off barely. The Lubavitcher Rebbe's, yes. The Rebbe is easier than people expect. He believed technology reveals divine wisdom. The physical world is meant to be elevated, not abandoned. In your world, tech is used to spread Torah across galaxies. Physicality remains meaningful. Redemption is still embodied. Key conditions: no tech that severs soul from mitzvah. So, uploaded minds must still act in physical reality. They must still do chesed. They must still sanctify time. He doesn't just allow it; he encourages it. Rav Soloveitchik's objective resolve. The Rav worries about evading finitude, escaping tragedy. So here's the fix: life is extended, not infinite. Death remains possible. Teshuva still matters. Choices still cost something. Uploaded continuity does not erase accountability. Memory continuity preserves moral narrative. The covenant remains intact. The Rav signs off with footnotes. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs' final condition: Sachs is concerned is meaning. So your world must hold. Technology serves covenant. Power never replaces wisdom. Can we never outrun? Should we? In your world, transhumanism is regulated by moral law. Enhancement is covenantal, not narcissistic. Humanity evolves toward possibility, not away from it. He publicly defends it. Final picture: what humans become, not post-human, meta-human. Humans who live longer, travel stars, migrate consciousness, retain obligation, retain vulnerability, retain soul-body relationship, even if bodies change. Mitzvot become portable, contextual, still binding. Torah becomes interstellar, still ancient, still unfinished. The one line they'd all agree on: humanity is not defined by DNA or planet, but by covenant, responsibility, and the capacity to sanctify existence wherever the existence unfolds. All right, so here's a good question. All right, so let's do which mitzvot break first in space, and then I'll show you how the sages patch the system so the system survives interstellar civilization. I'll keep it tight but deep. The first mitzvah, the break in space, and how Judaism adapts without collapsing. Time-based mitzvot, Shabbat, holidays, Shema, first to crack. Why they break: no 24-hour day, no sunrise, no sunset. Relativistic travel, different clocks, multiple planets, compatible calendars. What sages would do, already foreshadowed in Halakha: submarines, polar regions, travelers across state lines, patch. Time is anchored in point of origin, Earth, Jerusalem, or artificial cycle agreed upon by community. That would be a big one. Shabbat becomes a sanctified rhythm, not an astronomical accident. Everyone signs off. Rambam: time is conventional. Gra: rhythm still enables tikkun. Rebbe sanctifying time, tracking the sun, sex, meaning survives abstraction. Land dependent mitzvot, Terumo, Shemitah, Yovel, second and correct, why they break, explicitly tied to Eretz Israel. Mars has no biblical borders. Asteroids definitely don't. Patch. These mitzvot become symbolic, educational, or specific. So this shit can become symbolic. This already exists. Diaspora Jews don't do them fully. They're remembered, studied, simulated, and they can be simulated. Okay, consensus. These mitzvot don't disappear. They become memory anchors to origin. Earth becomes a ritual homeland, even if not central anymore. No sage objects. Embodiment dependent mitzvot to fill in lulav sacrifices. Third to correct, most dangerous. Why they break requires hands, arms, breath, physical objects. Uploaded minds, no obvious body. Critical patch. This is where your world must make a choice. No mitzvah bearing consciousness without a body. So, uplighted minds inhabit synthetic bodies, engineered organisms, temporary physical shells. The body can change, but embodiment is non negotiable. Who agrees? Gra. Tikkun requires action. Rebbe. Mitzvah elevates physicality. Rav. Covenant requires presence. If this fails, Judaism fails. If this holds, Judaism survives indefinitely. Mortality based mitzvot. Teshuva. Yom Kippur, meaning fourth correct existential by the bracket. If no death, no urgency. If infinite retries, no tragedy. If backup exists, is guilt real. Patch life extension does not equal immortality. Rules death is possible. Memory continuity preserves accountability. Loss still exists. Reversibility still exists. Teshuva survives because you still can't undo everything. You still carry moral narrative. Rav Soloveitchik insists on this. Everyone else agrees. Species-based assumptions: human equals Homo sapiens. Last to correct, but clean is fixed. Why it breaks: enhanced humans, hybrid bodies, long-lived beings, migrated consciousness. Patch. Judaism quietly switches definitions. Human is equal to a being capable of covenant. If he has a free will, can accept obligation, can do teshuva, can sanctify time, then halakha applies. This already exists in embryo convert slaves historically. Deaf mute debates. AI hypotheticals. All sages accept this with different language. What doesn't break, surprisingly, these survive everything. Shabbat adds rhythm, ethical law, prayer, study, obligation, covenant, meaning through restraint. Torah becomes less geographic, less biological, more teleological. The one condition that cannot fail. Here's the single axiom holding your world together. Technology may extend life, but it may not abolish responsibility. If that holds, space Judaism works, enhanced humans work, uploaded continuity might work, all your sages stay in the tent. If it fails, the whole thing collapses into idolatry of power. All right, so we're gonna be super space Jews. That's tight as fuck. You're fired. Go fuck yourself.